Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hunter's Gathering. I am your producer and host, Markia McCarty. This is going to be somewhat different of a show. If you can't already tell, with like I'm flooded with light, and I've got this little person in front of me. We are doing something special today. We are going to be doing miniature paintings. Painting miniatures. I've never done this before. This is going to be very interesting. In fact, it's a particular miniature from Altered Carbon. Along with that, we're going to be talking with the GM of Outbreak Undead right now. It's our campaign that we have, Outbreak Undead Rag and Bone, that we have on Tuesday nights right now. And we'll be speaking with the GM, Knoxweiler Birth, about the do's and don'ts of living and killing in the landscape of Outbreak Undead. And along with that, if that wasn't enough, he's also going to teach me how in the world to paint this. So let me just go ahead and introduce Knox. Knox, thanks so much for doing this for Hunter's Gathering.
Really excited about talking about Outbreak Undead at the same time. So, yeah, let's get this done.
Okay. Yes. Wow. So the particular miniature that we have going on today, I believe you said this is Kristen Ortega from Altered Carbon.
It is. If I could switch over to my overhead here, we'll go off of the model that you've got there. That's the assembled model. Now, when the Altered Carbon set is released to everyone, they'll be able to pick these up in the boxes as they are here. And we're going to switch over to my overhead, where I have a couple of images here where we'll be able to show you the box and also the miniatures. Okay, you're now looking at the Altered Carbon box. It comes in a package about this size, and it has 4 characters inside of it. These were part of the Kickstarter exclusive that comes along with the tabletop RPG book that just came out, and they're very good, high quality resin models from a company called War Cradle. They're well known within the game industry. If you are a hobby miniature painter, you probably have heard their name before. They're definitely kind of a staple within the community. They work for a lot of other game companies producing models for them. And so I've already assembled Kia's model, and I've also primed it. But when you open the box, what you're going to find are some really well cast resin models here. And they come on what are called sprues. And I apologize, Kia. I know you can't see what I'm doing.
Oh, I have a setup of devices going on right here. So on my phone,
Yeah.
I'm actually able to look at the Twitch stream. So
Outstanding. Yeah.
2020, y'all.
Well, listen,
we're doing this.
We had to, I've done plenty of painting streams before, but to do this remote aspect and being able to put it all through, we definitely added a lot of complication to what we're doing here tonight, but we're excited. Okay, so what I was saying was I have these resin models. They're on what's called a sprue. A sprue is a connecting piece that ties multiple model parts together, and it makes it so that a dynamic model with a lot of three-dimensional outcroppings and underhangs can be easily printed without sacrificing any of the detail. So you break a model apart, and there's a little bit of engineering that goes into this in the back end, where the companies that make these will think about kind of how they get split apart. And Hunter's Entertainment has already provided some fairly simple models. Some of them are completely put together, so you don't have to worry about that. Yeah, so it looks like Kovacs is actually one piece. You don't have to worry about anything like that. The unicorn backpack is perfectly rendered here.
Oh, unicorn carrying case.
Oh, carrying case, sorry.
Yeah.
Carrying case is well rendered here. And that's the thing about these models, is that they have gone to pretty great lengths to really model them in a way that they look like the characters that you know. And I'm very impressed by them. They are slightly larger than a heroic 28 millimeter scale. They could still work for any other game that you might be playing. But you'll see that once we put this onto a base, that it makes it pretty much interchangeable with any other science fiction game, or if you like the character enough, you could find any sort of use for them. But if you are a fan of Altered Carbon, I think that's where the real juice is here in this set, because it really hits the nail on the head as far as what they look like. You also have these parts here, which are all of the arms and the heads. I don't think these have actually been shown outside of. I don't think this has ever been seen.
Oh, well, yeah. Can you get that a little closer to camera then, so we could take
I can.
a really...
Yeah.
Okay.
Our focus for this might be off,
Well,
but I can alter
you know
it.
what? That looks fine. That looks perfect.
Hold on. Let me see if I can help you out here. Here we go.
Ooh, hello.
So you can see that they really do have a lot of really pretty nice detail attached to them.
I love the detail in their apparel, and then just the attitude that's in the stance.
Yeah, and so then there are some parts here. These are arms and heads and other things. It's not a complicated process. I'm going to move my chat screen here, Kia. I'm just going to pull that over just a little bit.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So yeah, I'm sure that there's a number of people out there that y'all have been doing miniatures for forever. I'm sure it seems very zen-like, and I've played with miniatures that other people have already, brought to their fruition, and I've utilized that in like D&D games or like other tabletop role-playing games. So when Knox was like, hey, so do you want to actually paint one of the miniatures that we have for like Altered Carbon, I definitely jumped on that. I never really thought that this would be something that I would be interested in, but this, just looking at the personality of this, because I'm a big person with like manifesting things and everything, and just to be able to get this minute detail down, to be able to have this along with the larger game itself, that's so incredibly satisfying. Like, even just thinking about doing something like that. So I'm really looking forward to the stream today to be able to do that. And I do have an eye on chat with Phoenix Goth. If you ever want to paint with someone, I volunteer. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
We've got a few hardcore painters already in chat. I can see now people who I've painted with in a number of capacities. But it's a lot of fun, and you're absolutely right. It's a very relaxing, kind of meditative hobby if you can allow yourself to really get into it. Let me make a slight adjustment here. Okay.
Yeah. And then also, Not Always Weak says minis are a serious addiction.
They are. But these are really, really well made. They're high quality. These would definitely be the sort of thing that you'd want to use as hero models if you were going to put them inside of a game that you were using for either like a Warhammer 40K or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and clip the feet here, and I'm going to remove the model from the sprue. While we're talking, I don't want to stop this, but I wanted to assemble this on camera. Yours is already assembled, but I thought that if I did this really quickly, people would get a little bit more of a understanding of kind of what it takes to start this process out.
Okay, definitely. So I guess along with this, some questions that I have with these particular miniatures. I know you might have already covered this. How different are these from other miniatures that people, like I said, I know nothing about miniatures.
Yeah.
How different from other miniatures that people would get? I mean, would it be easy to, like, if you've already painted miniatures, you could just jump into doing our Altered Carbon ones? Or is there something slightly different with like assembly or something like that that they should be aware of?
Yeah, so if you're new to miniatures and you've never painted one before, There are a few supplies that you're going to need. I'm going to talk through those once we start kind of progressing here. I'm using just a hobby knife now. Most people have X-Acto blades around. It depends on what kind of crafting you do. It's important to get one that isn't necessarily the kind that you would dispose of with a blade that breaks off, because you want the long, kind of sharp, controllable tip that these triangular X-Acto blades have. And that's because you're going to go along and we're going to remove what's called a mold line. And everything that is cast has a mold line, because oftentimes miniatures are put into two-part molds and they're pulled from that. These are beautiful. I mean, the flash, as it's called, is very minimal across the entire model. Now, I already did this to your model, but what I'm doing is I took the edge of the blade, and I'm just, when I see a little bit of an imperfection where it looks like those two parts of the mold have met, it's just a little line. And if you take your X-Acto blade and you just drag it along that mold line, it immediately cleans it off. And you can do as much of this or as little as you want. It's not essential. If you just want to get it put together and start painting it, don't let anyone shame you. I am really big on actually doing that preparation work, because I feel that it does make a pretty big difference in the quality of the final product, because it doesn't break the believability of the model. Because, you know, if you have a line that kind of intersects past the pants here and into the shirt, immediately that kind of draws the eye away. But it depends on your use for this. Like if you're using this to do some tactical combat when you're playing a game of Altered Carbon, you know, maybe you just want to get them together and get them out on the table for that game. That's what I'm really excited about, because there's more sets than just this one. There are 4 sets in total. After the break, I'll probably grab them and I'll show off everything that's out.
Ooh, excellent. Yeah, because I'm before I ever started working for Hunters Entertainment, I was a backer. So in a way, my story is a little bit like Alex, the community guy, where it's just like, oh, this is excellent. I believe in this product, and be like, oh, you want me to work for you? Cool, let's do this. You know, that kind of a thing. So
it's funny how they get you like that.
I know.
It feels like a trap. It's like, hey, we're making great stuff. You want to come hang out? And then next thing you know, yeah.
You're like, you like to do stuff with games and talk to interesting people. You wanna come do that for us? You're like, heck yes, I do.
It's a good kind of trap, but it's a definite trap.
It is. It's like the best honeypot ever because there's no downside. Oh, and thank you, Phoenix Goth. You say that you have some unassembled minis. You could take pictures if I want to see the before and after. I would love that. You can tag me in the Hunters Entertainment Discord. I'm at Darth Markia, or if you can do that on Twitter, I'm at Markia McCarty. I would love to see those. That would be very, very cool. And thank you for some minis come pre-assembled, so you know how to assemble them first. You have a plastic cement and a clipper. Thanks, Phoenix Goth. Very, very cool.
Yeah, there are. So these are very friendly miniatures. You know, I would say that these do require some assembly, so I would not say that they are the easiest models that you can find on the market. There are plenty of options out there. A lot of companies that are doing a lot of really great things. I'm going to talk a lot about some of the products that I use, and some of them are related to different companies that do miniatures as well. But honestly, I think that the small amount of work that we're doing here, it's very minimal, and it has such a great result when it's done that it's well worth the time. All I'm doing is just a little bit of scraping here on each arm, and then I've got to glue 4 pieces together. I've got the body, I've got 2 arms, and I've got a head. And it's very clear how they fit together because there are these little stepped areas inside of the crux of the shoulder and on the head, little pegs that line things up.
Okay.
Yeah. I definitely see some familiar faces in the chat right now, and I hope everybody's having a good time. If while we're doing this you have any specific questions about what I'm doing, don't hesitate.
Ooh, yeah. Not always weak. Had a question. Do you ever paint them before assembly so you can use the stand there as a holder?
I do some pre-painting before assembly, but I am like a natural born kit basher. So more often than not, I prefer, and this is just my personal preference, to assemble the entire model and to make sure that every seam line and little imperfection is fully uh, removed before I prime, and then once I primed, then going in and painting, because otherwise, when you assemble after you've painted, you have to do some very surgical work to make sure that the areas that you've glued together don't have any sort of gaps or seams.
Ah,
And so I'm always careful about that. Now, plenty of people paint only in parts and then assemble. It's whatever works best for you. If one of these characters had like a shield that was blocking half their body, I'd take the shield off and do that separately, but I would do everything else as one part. And so, unless there's some very large surface that is preventing me from being able to do that, I usually will just put it all together, make it perfect, and then move on from there.
okay.
But I absolutely never use the sprues. I don't paint on these.
Mhm.
They're not easy to handle, and that's any sprue. It's not just these. What I would do is I would glue them onto a little piece of paper clip or a piece of wire, really whatever you've got, like a little pin or something, and then I'll super glue it on there temporarily, and then I'll paint the head that way, right? So that it's on
Okay.
like a little needle or something, and then when that's done, I'll take it off and glue it back on. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
I see. Okay, because one of the things that I was looking at with Kristen here is just like looking at her arms and her face. It's I'm astounded at the detail. Like I have played with other people's miniatures, like
yeah.
when I would guest in games, and I would, you know, there was a different appreciation than having it right now where I'm about to actually paint it myself. And just like looking at the fierceness of her expression and looking at the detail just like of her nose and her eyebrows. It's like are we like getting in there
Uh,
to do all of that?
I was blown away by how much these actually look like the actors.
Oh
I,
my
I
gosh.
honestly,
So
and I'm
good.
not just saying this because we work for the company.
Yeah,
I
no, I
honestly have rarely seen miniatures rendered in a way that they look like the actors that they're trying to depict.
ooh,
And they've got it. I mean, they've got some really good facial sculpts.
I wonder if
Um,
there's a way that I don't think it's going to focus on it.
Well, what I will promise is that I'll make sure that we get some images up on the Hunters Discord
Yeah.
after we're done, and people can really zoom into the photographs in that area, and we'll come back to it and just kind of check out. Look at that.
Yeah, even just the detail on the hair.
Oh.
I mean, she's ready to kick some butt. You can feel that. She doesn't even have any color on her yet.
Yeah. So what I did, and I'll talk about that here in a minute as well, is I primed your miniature for you ahead of time, and you can do this a number of different ways. There's no, you know, there's some wrong ways to do it, but there's a couple of different options that you have when you are trying to prep out your miniature, and you have different color choices as well. So honestly, I would suggest that you make sure that the model's completely clean, and then if you're able to purchase a spray primer, that's probably the easiest way to do it. However, oftentimes people would prefer to do a little direct painting primer, and that's what I'm going to do here, just so that I can show people an easier way to do it. But for yours, I got a really good result off of a rattle can, which is an old, they come in and spray paint canisters, and you just shake them up, and you can put primer down pretty easily. It comes in gray and white and black, and each of those color choices is going to help you kind of set the tone and the mood for the model right off the bat. Because if you paint over a gray or a black, it's going to feel moodier. The colors are going to be a little less saturated, and it immediately kind of affects your other choices. And if you paint in white, everything's just a little bit brighter and a little more vibrant, right? And so,
Okay.
just at those really early stages, you start to make choices that are going to determine the final look of your model. Spray cans are really easy to come by. I use an airbrush almost exclusively now for that, but that's kind of at a level where most people are not going to get there unless they really enjoy model building and painting, and have a real reason to start to invest in the hobby.
Okay. Wow. And thank you, chat. They're like dropping some knowledge for other people and like newbies like me, where it's like Phoenix Goth is like prime applying a base coat to the figure that helps paint clean properly. For me, I'm like, oh yeah, like with nail polish, where it's like
Exactly. Yeah.
you have to lay or painting in a house. You have to have a primer coat with
Mm-hmm.
everything. I like a Bissell Icarus. I've never used minis, so I was today years old when I learned they didn't come already assembled.
Hey, look,
The
that's
more you
why we're
know, the
here. Yeah, Icarus. That's exactly it. And that's kind of why I wanted to start out and actually help put this together with you all while we're here. It's going to take us an extra 20 minutes, before we start painting, but I think the value of that is going to be that everybody has a full understanding of what goes into it. The other thing I'm going to probably do for the Kickstarter backers of the Altered Carbon game is have some resources that I'm going to put together for Alex to share on our Discord, so that if anyone gets stuck or needs help, they can kind of step into an area that we're going to put together, just so that it's like, hey, here's some quick assembly tips if you have any issues.
Okay, nice. Yeah, and then also to remind y'all that are subscribers of the channel, and then non-subscribers too, is that if you see the little witchy hat that's at the top right-hand corner if you're on the app, that is Scry. You right now are accruing time to be able to utilize during our Tuesday night campaign. So the points that you accrue now while we're doing this miniature painting, you can utilize for resources to help out communities and help out our campaign people on Tuesday nights. So, yeah, I love that we're
Kia says, with all sorts of invested interest, please get involved in the scry so that her characters can survive just a little bit longer.
Well, I will say that with this past Tuesday,
Mm.
and for those that are following the campaign and those that are just like new to it right now, we're doing Outbreak Undead, Rag and Bone. Luis Carrazzo is Lampwick.
So
He's like
good.
right? He's like a smarmy, bull crapper. I don't know how much cursing we want to do on this particular stream, but well, for miniature painting. I don't know the rating on miniatures. I assume it's PG, but I don't know.
I usually keep things PG-13 because it's the internet,
PG-13. Okay, cool.
which means
Yeah,
you get
so
one F bomb.
okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to make it a statement piece like in a scary movie.
Yeah.
There's like the best F-bomb drop in scary movie. Yeah, so oh my gosh, what was I saying? Oh yeah, Luis Carrazzo's character Lampwick is in a very tight spot right now, surrounded by the dead. It looks like Rowan, who is a melee damages character, might have gotten him out of a tough spot where he was surrounded by undead. Achira Sampson, my character, very foolishly decided to fire into the crowd of Romeros of zombies, and to help Lampwick get a chance to be able to escape. in doing that, she managed to leave herself open to attack from Dr. Marie Espinoza and has been knocked unconscious. So the exit that Lampwick and Rowan could have used is now blocked off to Maria Espinoza. And also, Achira is at the mercy of the doctor when, and possibly the trust that she had established with the doctor is also lost. So there's that. Along with that, we have a Juniper song played by Michelle Wynn Bradley, who, when escaping from the basement of Gray Ridge Farms, ran into a number of really disturbing individuals, including Melee Damage's previous avatar. Well, I guess it would be like Avatar would be a saying for it. Abigail Rose, who ended up being a Romero, but not just any Romero, like literally one that talks and has, it looks like, reasoning skills and like defense and battle strategy. Thank goodness we had Xander, John, oh my gosh, John Array.
Genre.
Genre. Yeah, I just want to make sure I get that right.
Yeah, no, it's like Monterey, but with a J.
Oh, I like, it's like the Simpsons thing. Genre.
Exactly.
Genre.
Yeah.
Genre. Dope.
Yeah, he was great. I was so glad that we had him as a guest, and he is always a delight. And kind of came in. We did some last minute shuffles to make it happen, but it was well worth the time. Can we switch the camera back down to my overhead? Okay. So if you look here, I've now assembled the model. This is what it looks like once everything is glued together. Also, excellent work showing off your primed model. I think everybody got a pretty great view of that.
Oh, nice. I'm hoping y'all saw the detail with that, including like she's got a gun in her, let's just call it a butt holster.
Yeah.
I guess we could call it like a back holster, but I'm going to call it a butt holster.
There are a lot of little straps and buckles and pieces here. But the great thing about this model, Markia, is that it is a very straightforward model to start with. We've got a couple of main areas that we need to work with, but it isn't overwhelming. It's not going to be something that we have to really work too hard at to get a really good result, which is always nice. But the things that are present, we get to spend a little bit more time with. There are a couple of nice areas here where we can focus on skin and skin tone, hair, a jacket, shirt, with, just some beautifully sculpted flow where that the fabric feels like it is fitted to a human figure. I can tell that these are jeans. The boots are beautifully rendered, and they feel like they have that kind of stiff leather look to them. Everything has a weight to it, which sometimes in models it doesn't translate as well. And I'm going to refrain from picking up other models and showing them side by side because everything has a different purpose.
No need for that. We don't need the brand X.
Yeah, well, but just to say that the sizing and all that is different. So if you're going to start this out and you're not starting out with these sorts of miniatures or the altered carbon figures, just know that every type of model is going to have some differences to it, and learning how to work around them is pretty important. All right, so are you ready to paint?
Yeah, and I want to say, Jules Does Stuff 15, thank you for gifting these subs. Like, gifted a sub to Phoenix Goth, and also, Smoke Beard, hello! I know you're from Saving Throw Show. They've subscribed.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for the sub.
Thank you. And those if you don't know, also on our Tuesday night campaign, if we can get 15 subs or 100 follows, then our crew will get an extra competency point. And believe me when I tell you that Roll20 wants all of us to die. So every competency point that we can get is a good thing. All right.
While we did have a little bit of a Roll20 snafu last week, it was user error, not Roll20 error, but we had an advanced skill that wasn't doing what it should have done. I will say that I'm not certain. I think that Outbreak is just. We all knew this anyway, but it is just absolutely unforgiving. Yeah, unforgiving.
It's
Unforgiving.
brutal. I literally feel like I'm in like it's Walking Dead back during the earlier
Uh huh.
seasons
Yeah.
when you're so invested and anyone can die at any
Any
time.
moment, and I love
You
that. I
know?
love that.
Ooh.
But yeah, we I don't want to release any big spoilers here in case someone still is going to check out the VOD. But
Oh,
yeah, it was brutal. It was brutal.
yes, yes, it was. Oh my gosh. I get so emotional on Tuesday nights. I get so emotional. I'm like standing up from my chair, like I can't take it. But yes, let's paint.
So I'm
Along
gonna.
with the,
Oh, I'm sorry. Kia, go ahead.
yeah, along with this, Knox has because like I said, I do not know anything about miniature painting. So has given me a number of oh, actually I think this is this is on you, not on me. I was just setting up a number of paint bottles that he has set up for me, along with a number one paintbrush. So for that very fine detail. So for any any of you out there that are like me, they're like, "Hey, I kind of want to do this at home." Yeah, there's altogether there's what 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different paint bottles that we're going to be utilizing tonight. So
And those colors are just a pretty basic spread. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to get, a variety of shades and highlights out of a number of different colors. I think one of the mistakes that, somebody who comes into this hobby makes is to try to put as many colors as possible on a model. And because of the size and everything, I always find that it's a better solution to pick out one or two key colors and think about what's really going to stand out well and think about contrast.
okay.
And so if anybody's watching my hands right now, and I don't want to interrupt what we're talking about, but I do want to just give you an indication because I want to get this done so I'm caught up with Kia. But all I'm doing is I've taken a black surface primer and it's from Vallejo, and I've watered it down. It's on my wet palette, which I'll talk about in a minute. And I'm just putting a thin coat of primer on my model, and I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to do it one more time. You can put any color primer on your model, as we've talked about. But if you're going to do brush primer, just like anything else, make sure that it is thinned down, because really the enemy of any good miniature painting is when you paint too thickly. And when you do that, you cover an obscure detail. And if you look online, just type in bad miniature painting, and what you'll find. And first of all, I don't really believe that there is any such thing. Like if you're having fun and you're happy with the result, then it's not bad miniature painting. But I know I've put models up that I'm just like, this is a hot mess, and what went wrong? And then I like to show why so that I can learn from it and other people can as well. But
I do have a question
yeah,
here from Abyssal Icarus. Do you just thin with water?
yes. So that's a great question. So I use two different water cups. And so you want one that you're going to use exclusively for any sort of traditional color, and then another that you're going to use if you have and use any metallic paints. The reason that you do that is because there are mica flecks in metallic paint to give it that sparkle. It's not actual metal. And so what that does is it will float around in your water if you clean the brush in the same one, and then when you are painting black or a skin tone or something like that, there is a chance that you will start to get some weird little reflective bits that are in your regular paint as well.
Ooh, we do not want that.
Yeah.
And I'm not certain if you can shake these paints.
You can.
So I'm literally just doing what I do with my my nail polish. I do some nail art when I'm feeling up to it. And one of the things that you do is you turn the bottle upside down and you just rub it between your hands, and that stops from like bubbling and everything, and like agitating the nail polish itself. Like shaking it is one of the worst things you can do. So that's, if any of y'all are wondering, that is what I'm doing right now with these paints. So just because I don't like bubbles.
Yeah, and I will encourage you to do whatever you find the best for yourself. I will say that these are acrylic paints, and
Okay. Oh, okay.
acrylic paints have a number of items within them, but it really comes down to like three key components. You have a binder, you have a medium, and you have a pigment. Okay, and so the pigment is what transfers the color. The binder is what helps all of this to stick and to dry and to kind of glue itself onto whatever you paint. And then the
I'll be
medium.
right back. I just got a low battery on my laptop and realized I did not plug it in. Please continue.
Yeah, and so then the medium is what is transferring all this. It's a thickened gel-like material that it can be thick or it can be thin. It's going to create the body of the paint. And when it comes to miniature painting, you always want something that's going to be of a medium that is thin enough to be able to paint the miniature, but not to obscure the detail. Which is really, again, the villain of the situation where you've put too much paint on, paint that's too thick. And this is exactly why you wouldn't want to go, and I've seen people paint miniatures with this, so do not hold me to this, but don't go to an art store and pick up apple barrel paints or cheap acrylic craft paints and expect them to do the same thing that these miniature paints do. There's a reason that these are expensive, and that's because they use different materials that are a little finer, that have higher quality, that have better pigment in it. The thickness and the size of the pigment changes things as well, and how it transfers onto the miniature. So depending on how you like to paint, you can do a number of different things. I will say that since it is an acrylic paint with all those parts in there, this is how I shake it. And you just go to town. The bubbles aren't going to affect much, but if you're happy rolling it like this, I would say make sure that you store your paints upside down so that they do that. I actually have here, and this is from, I don't have it on the screen, but I have tattoo ink mixers, and I can press the paint down, and it kind of vibrates it into a quicker, a full mix. That is far and above a tool that is not necessary, because it's a good arm workout, and you can become jacked painting miniatures, which is kind of a secret that I don't think a lot of people know.
I like that. Where it's just like, hey,
it's like a shake weight.
How do you exercise? We're like, I paint miniatures.
Yeah, nobody will believe you.
These guns don't just appear. It's because of
because of excessive geekiness. But so here's the thing, and I'm going to be real honest with you, Markia. There are a number of really super talented miniature painters who have come into the hobby from the nail art community, and they are exceptional. They already have the mentality for like the fine detail and understanding how the materials work and how to get the best out of your brushes. And they also come with a lot of creative, innovative styles that have changed miniature painting because they've come from a different art form that didn't, originally start out with painting D&D characters, right? And
that is excellent.
Yeah, I'll have to put together a list of people that I recommend that you check out. But some of them are on YouTube. Some of them you can find with blogs and things like that. But the two things are actually fairly close in style and kind of difficulty level and like kind of where you can.
Yeah, I mean, nail art can get really complicated. I mean, things with like doing swirls, dipping in water, nail stamping. There's a gambit of things. Like there's a number of things that I have, like because I kind of fell out of my nail art and now I'm starting to get back into it. But it's yeah, it's that patience, that zen quality to it. It's also the quality of nail polish that you get. I mean, one thing with like nail polish, I mean, I guess it would be like with acrylics. Like you can get $2 nail polish. It does its job for, a day or two, depending on like the base coat and the top coat that you have going on with it. Or you get like your $18 a bottle
Mm-hmm.
nail polish. And
Mm-hmm.
it also depends on like the brand that you go with things, and once again, the base coat and the top coat. So I can just imagine like the plethora of things that you can do with miniatures.
Uh, most nail art is enamel based, and so with
Mhm.
enamels you have a whole different style of paint management because of the way that it flows and how you have to thin it and how certain translucencies can be achieved. And acrylic is very forgiving, and it's also fairly easy to work with, and it dries quickly and doesn't have any point where it's like excessively tacky, which can be pretty dangerous because if you try to paint over tacky enamel, it immediately kind of picks up every texture that your brush has pushed along it.
Okay.
Uh,
But yeah, whenever we are set for painting, I'm good also.
okay, so I have told you to gather a few items. Do you want to talk about the things that I had you put together for your little
Yes.
work?
Okay. So Knox assembled the miniature for me and also had the variety of different colors that we would be using all together. I have 9 different colors here, along with the number one air art brush tower that I'm using. Along with this, I have a variety of paper plates for mixing paint colors. I also have, see here, 2 different cups of water with cups that I don't care about. In fact, these are literally my painting cups that I have because I have like an easel and some other paints that I do for like painting classes. So I have these, one for regular paints, the other for perhaps mica based paint, and then I've got a couple of others if I need just a clear uh, just some clear water to also have. And of course, I've got a pitcher of water for all of that included. And of course, do not forget paper towels. So I have a variety of those along with, and you can't see this on because it's on my floor, but I've put just newspaper all on my floor because I rent and I am not going to be replacing this carpet. And unfortunately, I couldn't find my tarp, which is, I don't know, packed somewhere with my Burning Man stuff. So yeah, these are the variety of things. And here's something that Knox didn't tell me about, but I decided to do it. I lit a orange candle to help us with the creativity for tonight because I also do a lot of candle magic type of deals. So
That's
with like,
amazing. Yeah, I have I don't have any candles lit, but I'm always interested to hear about how all that works.
oh, it definitely does. It's just like a resonating thing. I believe in crystals and manifestation and candle magic, most definitely. It's just very easy to. A lot of people have like Yankee
Mm-hmm.
candles or maybe Kringle candles or whatever in their house, and all of those tend to be different colors, and different colors inspire different like resonating frequencies type of a deal, which makes me really interested in miniature work
Mm-hmm.
as well, because depending on the colors that you put into that could also be like resonating frequencies. So I mean, we this is all my wheelhouse and I never realized it.
Yeah, no, you're telling me things that are going to be really useful because you understand color theory right off the bat. You understand like what colors represent, and also on levels that I'm sure that I'm ignorant about, how those resonances affect point of view. I've done a ton of study. In fact, I just wrote a book that deals with a lot of this, but the idea that color and representation of color does have emotional impact. And so when you're deciding how you're going to paint your model, there are a couple of things that I do depending on what the model is. And again, every project can be pretty different. But the first thing that I'll say is, if you're able to do a little bit of research, do some Google searches and find images that maybe don't even have anything to do with the model, but that bring to mind the mood that you're trying to capture. Now, you might find that through old paintings. You might find that through comic book art. You might find that in just pictures that you've run across on your Twitter feed. Whatever that might be, or on Instagram or on Pinterest, you can find inspiration. What I would recommend you not do is to find the box art for the model that you're trying to paint and hold yourself to an exact replication of that.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's like you're customizing this. This is yours.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about somebody else's rendition of it.
People, I think, it's a natural instinct to want to replicate that, but I think that it's a downfall because every company, rightfully so, wants a pro to take their model, make it look as good as it possibly can be, take photos of it, and then sell the model based on that photo. Well, if you get that model, you have to realize that the person who painted that has so many years of experience in doing that it tends to turn people away from the hobby, because they look at the box and they look at the back with all the little parts, and then they don't want to pick it up. They don't want to be a part of it. They feel that it's too imposing, right?
Oh yeah. No. This is a safe paint zone here.
Absolutely.
Like, do what you're gonna do.
All right. So I did because obviously I could have given you 50 some paints and you would have made a lot more choices, but I did give you 10, I think 9 or 10 solid paints. And the reason that I did that is I chose a number of warm and cool colors, and there's a single metallic in there. And anything that you paint in the future, Kia, this is a really good starter set for, because it has what you're going to need to get started. And for me, that's a white paint, a black paint, a series of at least one good brown tone. I prefer blues and grays and greens and oranges, because with those we can alter the hue of any of the other colors and make things. Now everybody knows the triadic red, blue, yellow, and how they interact with each other and how you can mix them together to get other colors.
Color wheel, yes.
Yeah, but there's a couple of different ways that color wheels interact with each other, and that you can get into the really deep theory of it, of using cyan and magenta and yellow to kind of create really, really diverse numbers of colors, only using a handful of paints. That's real advanced stuff that is, while very useful, I think that if you understand just some base concepts when you're painting, that you're going to do really well. And we've already painted our miniature with our primer in a deep black flat paint. And so we're going to build up from that. And we're going to use our darkest layers, our deepest shadows. We're going to use what's here. So the first thing that I'm going to say is, as a bonus level for you, Kia, I don't know if you have poster tack or a little bit of tape, but if you can get something that is comfortable in your hand and you put a little bit of poster tack or tape, a little ball of tape, underneath your miniature, you can then press it down and do something that will, if you can see this, Kia, that's in my hand, I've got this is a handle that has a little clip on top of it. You don't need anything fancy like this, but you could use anything, whether it be another bottle of paint or a medicine bottle, or just something that you can hold in your hand so that you're not touching the model so much as you're working.
How about lipstick?
That works. And so you just need a little bit of tacky something.
Boutique lipstick.
Mm-hmm.
So I could put it on like that.
Yeah.
Let me grab tape. I know exactly where that is because I was wrapping a Secret Santa gift earlier. So I know exactly where that is.
Okay. And again, chat, I'm sorry, I'm not reading chat as much. Yeah, there's still not enough paint on my hands yet. Wait for it. We're not there yet. Because that was the prime coat, not always weak. Once I start mixing colors, my hand becomes the final palette. So while Kia's putting her model together, I'm going to talk about what I'm using here. A paper plate is perfectly acceptable. If you get a little piece of tile, something that's porcelain, you can use that too. You can find all this stuff at hardware stores for dirt cheap. But what a wet palette is it's a little bit of an advanced product, but if you're going to do more than just a handful of models, I recommend you start to investigate what they are. You can make this out of a Tupperware dish, but it's a sponge with a little layer of parchment paper on it. And then I put my paint onto the parchment, and because it's cool and moist because of the water that you put on the sponge, it doesn't dry out. Your paint, because it's acrylic, remains wet longer, and you can use it to mix around. This primer over here, I put a bunch of it on the palette, but I've also watered it down and spread it out considerably. Even though this is a thin layer of paint, if I seal this up overnight and come back to it, I can still use the exact same paints that I started with. Yeah, we are definitely going to get there, Alex. Don't worry about that. My hands are going to be covered in paint before this is all said and done.
And then also, I love Phoenix Doc was like, I've got a purple candle lit. You're like, excellent. That's all about intuition, spirituality, connecting to higher self. So yeah, talk about being zen and getting out of your own head. Purple candles are amazing. So well done that you were just naturally attracted to that.
So when you're setting up your palette, whatever that might be, and this would be the next step for you, Kia. Yeah, you got it. You got the model. If we can switch over to Kia's lower cam, we'll be able to see pretty much exactly. There's a slight delay.
Yeah. So I mean, for when it comes up on Twitch, I literally took one of my metallic, long-lasting lipsticks. That if y'all are interested, it's a boutique company called Stay Golden. It's like Stay Golden Cosmetics, and it looked to be just about the perfect size. And I took some brown, just like brown packing tape, and stuck this right on there.
And what that's going to do is that's going to help Kia to prevent from touching the model while she's working, because if you do anything you can do to protect your model, because it will smudge and smear, and you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. It's also more comfortable.
Yeah, no, I'm good with it, because it's like I'm glad that I basically had that right there for it.
All right, so then talking about your palette, Kia, you've got a few paints there, and I would suggest that you lay out just small little dots after you've shaken each of them up. Put down little dots of paint in a circle that feels right to you, whatever's comfortable, and keep your white and your black on opposite sides.
All right.
And what we're going to do is we're going to pick out the colors that we're going to use. Now, you don't have to have every single color out on your palette. Like, if you're planning this out, just know that you're going to use some of these. So I think everything that you've got is going to be worth exploring a little bit. And I'm going to try to guide you through. I'm going to have some different paints, and I'll have different colors and things like that. But this is all about getting a good, decent base coat on. There is one paint that I don't want you to put out right now. It is the Umber Wash.
Okay.
And the Umber Wash is going to be for a intermediate step where we're going to actually we're going to wait for the base coat to dry. We're going to wash, and then we're going to pick out highlights. And we're going to do this fairly quickly. This isn't going to be, a super long process. I'm just throwing a couple paints down myself, and go for it.
Yeah.
I apologize, Markia. I am so used to solo streaming miniature painting that at this point when I paint, my mouth just keeps moving because of the Twitch life. So tell me to shut up at any point if I keep rambling on.
Because I'm well known for telling people to shut up.
No, 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 no.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And for anyone that's in the chat, if there's any further questions or you got like tips and comments, like hit it up because I'm just having a good time right now. I mean,
Yeah, it's all about having a good time. And, if people are painting along with us and they have questions about the projects they're working on, don't feel like you just have to ask questions about altered carbon miniatures. I'm happy to talk about whatever. And I know we're going to get into a little bit of our conversation about some of the inner workings of Rag and Bone as well.
yes, we are. That was because that was all part of the master plan.
I'll tell you,
To get some answers.
no, I'm having a great time with the game. I also put on a warm, woolly sweater because I was cold. Now I'm hot, so I'm gonna take that
Yeah.
off.
I put on a for painting. I wasn't sure how messy this would get, so I put on a this is something from like my college alma mater, University of Florida.
Nice.
So it's like, but it's acrylic that washes out, right?
It
If it
will.
doesn't, I've got other stuff from UF, and I can get some more stuff.
Acrylic almost always washes out. Now there are some pigments that are a little more difficult to deal with than others, but uh, I think if you get anything on your sweater, you'll be all right. You should be able to get it out.
Awesome. So I did my dots. I don't know if
Okay, I want to make sure that
You
this
can
is
see
in
some of them.
focus. I don't know if I have enough light on my miniature, believe it or not. There we go.
Okay. Oh, Not Always Weak says there's still not enough paint on Knox's hands.
Not yet. Wait for it. So I always use, what they're talking about is I use the back of my hand to thin paint. And by the end of it, it looks like a horror show, like a clown exploded.
Ooh, fun stuff.
Yeah. So again, as I was saying before, you always want to be aware of your thickness on paints that you're using. I always paint from the bottom up. You can do whatever works best for you. For purposes of this tutorial, I think we should probably start with skin tones. And
Oh.
I think that the best way to paint skin tones on models is to ignore what the bottles say. If it says skin tone, don't, you might find colors that you like, but you need a variety of shades to mix together because if you are if you're building up, you want depth, and it also depends on the type of skin tone that you're trying to paint. Now, Kristen in the show obviously has darker skin, so I'm going to, and you can paint whatever you want, by the way. You don't have to follow any sort of like set choice based on what existed in popular culture beforehand. Any of these can be painted in any way that you like.
Yeah, I'm painting her my skin tone or as close to it as I can get because I want the representation.
Yeah, and you have a number of different browns in there, but what I would suggest is for darker skin tone, what you're going to want to do is leave room to build up from. We're already working with a dark black undercoat, so
Okay.
when you're painting your browns, find 3 shades of brown, take a little bit of water, and thin it out. Everybody in chat can see what I'm doing here. I think you can too on your phone. But I've thinned this paint out. This is not a lot of paint. But
Okay.
I've really thinned it down so that it's almost translucent. And there's no magic bullet for how to thin your paints, and every paint that you use is going to be different. As long as, and this is the minimal amount of work that you should do, dip your brush in water and then put it on the palette next to the paint and mix that together. That typically will do it. And get a good sharp tip, and what I do is here you go, not always weak. I drag it over the back of my hand. You don't have to do this. You can use a paper towel or something like that.
I don't mind getting my hands dirty. That's not a deal.
So it's just to make sure that you've got a good sharp tip, and I kind of roll my brush while I do it. And then I also, it also makes sure that you're not going to flood the miniature. And then find the area that you're about to paint and just slowly start to apply those thin layers across the model.
Okay. It just feels like maybe I thinned it out too much.
Yeah, it's a danger. So if it looks like it's flooding, if you're losing details, you've gone too far.
Okay.
It's you can always add to. It's harder to take away.
Okay.
So what I would say is go back and thicken it up a little bit, and add a little more paint to that mix of thinned down water until you start to see the shade and also feel that thickness on your finger. Like it's just one of those things that you've got to kind of learn through some experience. But
Right.
if you paint 2 or 3 models, I guarantee you'll start to get a feel for it. And then I just use the edge and the side of my brush. I don't always just use the tip. And you don't always have to go up and down like painting a house. You can stipple, so you can kind of like poke at the model. And in doing that, what we're doing here is we're laying down what's called a base coat. And what that's going to do is that when it's dry, it's going to be the primary shade that's going to be over the entire section of the model for that part. And so if you do this, there are people who paint everything to completion. It's like eating a big meal. Like if you have a plate in front of you, some people choose to go with a little bit of everything. Some people eat one thing and then move to the next thing. This is
So
creative.
timid. I'm so timid. This is like my first brush stroke. So
Yeah.
I'm like, ah.
Well, you can't make any mistakes here. So just let it happen and just slowly apply the paint. And the thing is you don't want a lot on there. You don't want it to flood the model. It's going to look a little wet. It might look like it's pooling a little bit, but if you've thinned it out enough, it's going to dry, and the detail is still going to be there. You just
Ooh.
Does it look like it's working?
Yeah. Do you want to
If you show it,
switch to mine?
yeah, we'll switch over to your model as I'm also adding these layers slowly over the skin. And I've chosen kind of a caramel skin tone. It's really warm, and I'm building that up a little bit lighter than where I'm going to end because I'm going to shade it just a little bit with a different technique here in a minute. But
I don't know if I've flooded or not, but I wish I'd gone a little bit darker, but this is still
you can always go darker. So that's going to be once that dries, you're going to add another layer.
literally just starting on one of her fists.
Okay.
We haven't switched
We
over.
haven't switched over
It's
yet.
okay.
I apologize. There's a delay right now because I'm not at the switcher.
Yeah.
We're learning.
Yeah.
The official Hunter's Entertainment painting streams will grow in their technical abilities as we move along.
Yeah, I wish it'd been a little bit darker. But goodness, there's so many crevices. It's interesting.
Go ahead and keep. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know that the switching is going to work from here. So go ahead and can you show it up to the other camera, your face cam?
Oh,
Because I can see that now.
It's not gonna focus.
Oh, it won't focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, it doesn't.
No, that's okay. That's exactly how you would get it to do that, but it's not gonna. Yeah, you don't have enough.
Yeah,
light
I
on
don't
it.
know why it's not. That's why I set up the other one.
No, that's okay. That's okay. If you feel like it's not dark enough, let that dry and then go ahead and add a second layer to it.
Hmm.
And it's okay at this point because this is the first layer and we're going to build up from that. If paint kind of slops over to a sleeve or, be as neat as you can, but I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time really being concerned about perfection and following every single line perfectly. As long as you're painting thin with thin line or thin coats, you're not going to hurt anything by painting back over it later.
Yeah, I know this feels pretty thin. It doesn't seem like it's doing any of the flooding that you were talking about. It's like also, I guess, like getting into the crevices of her knuckles.
Yeah.
Like I started off with her fists.
You definitely want paint to flow. You don't want to feel like you're fighting it. And if you don't feel like it's automatically kind of rushing a little bit off your brush, then I feel like it's probably too thick. Everybody works differently, but for me and the way that I paint, I like to build up a lot of really thin layers. And when it comes to skin, there are techniques that can really improve how you paint. There are some really exceptional painters out there who have brought a lot to the hobby recently, and again, some of them are from the nail art community, but some of them are also from they come from beauty makeup, and they understand. They've helped to kind of create better understanding of how to really utilize some of the techniques that work on a full size human face when you're, building up those contours and shading and sculpting with just a layer of paint. There have been some really, really interesting YouTube videos that have been made that specifically compare the two skills and are really applicable to each other.
It is so interesting to me that the first thing that you said was, let's do skin tone. I feel like her face is so incredibly intricate
Mm-hmm.
that I would have wanted to do that like last.
Well,
But
it's a choice. Again, since the skin is the bottom layer of what we're painting, we're going to then add everything onto it. And I'm also, the way that I like to work is I usually choose the most difficult thing, get it right, and then move on.
interesting.
Everybody's different though, so you don't have to do things that way.
No, it's fine. I'm going for it. It's
Um,
working.
and
I just
so,
need to make it a little darker.
yeah, what we'll do, and again, some people would completely render the skin where they would add all their shadows and their highlights, and they would get it to the point where it was pretty much a completely finished part of the model. And then once that happens, they would move on to the next thing. But I think that we should put a couple of coats of the skin tone base down,
Mm-hmm.
let that dry, and then we'll move over to the other colors because we're going to be doing fairly quick work.
Okay.
It would take, it depends on how quickly you paint, but if you're really on top of your game, 2 to 3 hours, you can produce a pretty great miniature. Um, I have spent upwards of 18 hours to 20 hours on a single model. I've spent, for larger scale models, like this is a piece that I've been working on. This is part of the photography. This is a Reaper model, but I've been painting this dragon
Ooh.
for the book that I wrote, and it was all about specific things. Like this is a basic model you can get for $20, so it's affordable. That was a big thing to me when I was putting everything together for it. Is that I definitely wanted to have pieces that allowed people to be able to easily access the hobby as opposed to having to worry about spending a lot of money to be able to enjoy miniature painting. But the idea of building flat layers and things like that, you've got a lot of different shapes and sizes and areas to paint. When you're painting large models, like I've spent easily a 60-hour, 80-hour work week completing some of these larger scale, insane models.
Oh. How long have you been painting, Knox?
I've been painting since I was 13.
Oh.
I started because I got into miniature painting before I got into wargaming or anything like that. I was around tabletop gaming a lot, and I started to do it, and then I picked up models alongside that, and started to paint for them, and at first I started painting models that I had picked models up for that were in um, Dungeons and Dragons books. If you're familiar with the Dragonlance Chronicles,
Oh yeah.
that got me. Those are some of the first models that I painted, along with some old, back when it was made out of lead and pewter and all of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I I've always kind of done it. It's one of those things that I find is a it's an escape, and I don't, like, my mind kind of immediately shuts everything else off, and I don't think about any of the other things that are going on in the world. Like, I don't have to. It's really an escape. It's like a release valve. There you go. We're back on your camera now.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's see what I'm
Yeah.
what I'm doing so far.
No, it looks like you've got really good coverage, and it looks like it's a really solid coat, which is very important. And I can still see all the detail. So it looks like you're on a great path to having a really well made painted miniature.
I really, really like the tip of having something that you can hold, because I didn't even think like three-dimensionally that I would want to keep on moving it around to like get into her fist and,
Yeah,
around underneath.
it's it's something that really uh, it really helps, and it's just a simple thing. Like, I've used a lot of different things. Old wooden spools are really good. Old medicine bottles, and if you want a little more weight to it, you could always put rocks into it so that it has some heft to it. And when you set it down, it doesn't have as much of a chance of being knocked over. I always reuse everything when it comes to this hobby. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to kit bash and kind of put things together out of junk, and recycle things that
Are
I
you,
find.
are you kidding? I'm like a big fan of using stuff that's already around your house.
Yeah, yeah. So you're going to be set here. Another reason that you're going to love this hobby.
Okay, I think I got the coverage I wanted for
Skin.
skin tone.
Okay, great. So
I
let that dry, and while we're doing that, you know, I I would typically say let's start painting the hair or the shirt or something like that. But let's actually move all the way down to the boots, because we've already got some browns here that we're working with, and
hmm
we can go ahead and drop that color in here. So pick up. It doesn't have to be brown if you want to paint the boots like combat boots and do black. Black's a little, yeah, black.
Well, I'm I'm gonna make them dark blue
Go for it. Yeah. Again,
just
whatever color you
because
choose.
I'm gonna give her the boots that I've always wanted.
Perfect. So whatever color that is, if you've got the blue already out, you can go ahead and dip into it. I'm gonna build up to a really dark leather brown, but I'm currently just kind of using the browns that are here.
Yeah. I'm gonna use the straight dark Prussian blue that I have because oh my God. It's like yes, she will I will make her in my own image.
Cavite77, hey, how's it going? Thanks for coming through. You love some cyberpunk. Well, you are in the right spot. We are painting some characters from Altered Carbon. These are models that were part of the exclusive that came out. Well, I don't think they're out yet. These are actually not yet shipped to backers, even. This is the first time they've been revealed. They are some beautiful resin models that have been constructed for the tabletop RPG Altered Carbon, completely appropriate for cyberpunk games. Um,
Yes.
a lot of
And
fun.
also welcome Penguini11. Hey.
Hey, Pinguini is here. That's amazing.
Hey.
Yeah,
Hey.
all kinds of friends coming in from varied streams. Lead,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I promise you, Pinguini, they actually made them out of lead at one point.
Wonder if this dark blue will even show up. Maybe I'm gonna mix it with a little bit of sky blue.
So you can mix it down. You're already thinking in the right way. You can also let it be dark, just paint it thin, and start to build up by mixing. Take your dark blue,
Mm-hmm.
take your light blue,
Yeah.
mix your mid tone, which would be the middle, like the two half and half more or less together, and
Mm-hmm.
then start with the dark, then paint on a little bit more of that mid, and then paint
Oh.
just a little bit of that bright, and that's going to be your highlight.
Wonderful. Heck yes. All right.
And so once you're thinking that way, you're already layer painting, which is one of the key ways that you're going to want to utilize your material to try to create that illusion of light, which is really what this whole thing is about, right? Like you're trying to create the illusion that light is striking the model in a certain way. The shadows and the contrast build visual interest.
Nice. Oh, she's gonna have some bitchin' boots. Like every badass should.
Right. So all you're going to need to do is really just get that thin coat on. Don't try to do too much too fast.
Okay.
And so remember that water is your friend here.
Mm-hmm.
And, make sure that you've got your brush at a nice sharp tip and you're not flooding your miniature. And just carefully work your way around. Get the paint applied. If it looks like it's a little patchy, don't try to force it. It's okay for it to be patchy on that first layer. You're going to put more layers down, and as you do, your undercoat is going to start to fade away a little bit. But if you're painting, Marky, if you're painting in a way that you have thin coats, because we've used this dark black undercoat, you
Mm-hmm.
already have a really great noir sort of base. It's already making everything a little darker and a little moodier.
Oh yeah, it's the same thing with nail polish. Like you can do a white base or a black base. I always prefer to do black bases, and it's because it just makes this beautiful. I don't want to say warmth because that's actually like a tone that you would do
Mm-hmm.
like a warm tone or a cool tone, but it brings this dimension that I feel like you don't quite get with a white base.
Yeah, and it takes a little extra work if you're trying to get a really clean, crisp color out of it. But I guarantee you that even if you do that, if you put three coats down, you're still going to have a little bit of that hue shift. So contrast when it comes to miniatures is kind of the the thing that is going to give you the most dynamic result. And by contrast, I just mean the two elements varied because it's a lot of different types of elements, but the two elements that create a conflict visually that build upon your visual expectations. So if you have warm next to cool, which we were just talking about, like warm things, like warm colors, like browns and reds and oranges. If you place that next to blues and greens, you're going to have a dynamic energy that's created because one is very cold, its color temperature, it feels icy, right? Or it feels like it doesn't have warmth embedded into it. And then the others obviously have a fiery kind of glow to them. There's something about the color that lends itself to that. And that, along with light and dark, can really kind of create some amazing visual opportunities for you to really manipulate that story and place them on the miniature in a way that draws the eye.
Yeah, kind of like was it accent colors?
Right.
Like you use accent pieces, fashion wise, like a statement necklace, for instance.
You also like if you want to draw, and here's a kind of a quick tip sort of thing, but like if you're painting a humanoid model, it doesn't matter if it's human or a dwarf or something like that. It doesn't matter what it is. If it has a face, chances are that is the focal point of your model, because humans just inevitably look for faces.
Oh yeah, we put faces on everything. We see faces in cars when we're a kid and we draw houses. It looks like it has a face on it. It's always usually happy if we enjoy being at home. I mean, look at us when we build robots. We always make sure that it has a face, it has a focal point.
Absolutely. It's so true. And so when you're doing this, chances are you're going to want to draw attention to the face of the model. And so again, that contrast and those color choices are going to play into that. So if you are, one of the things that I find about darker skin tones is that you really do need to take a little bit of another tone and build your highlight so that it doesn't diminish the darkness of the skin, but it adds enough highlight color to it that it still draws the eye. So you got to think about the light and not just the tone. So you have to think about the luminosity of kind of the color. So I find that like it depends on the type of skin again, but that greens and blues mixed with your brown in the right amount really help to do any kind of skin tone. But picking out the right skin tone is something that you create on your palette, and that you're going to be adding colors to it when you start to kind of get into some more advanced painting that helps you to really render a wide variety of skin tones in a very believable and attractive way on the model.
I like that. Like it's that's an important thing. It's something that you well, like for instance, in movies and TV shows, you can tell the lighting people that know how to light uh different skin tones rather than just lighter skin tones.
Right.
And it makes a huge difference in a scene. And it's like I don't know if people besides brown skinned people see that, but hopefully just listening to or watching this stream, go ahead and look at your movies, the ones that do have the ones that do have brown skinned people in them.
I've got an elf that I'm painting, and she has very, very dark skin. There's a couple of models here that I've got on hand that I've tried a variety. I don't think you got enough light here for me to really be able to show this off correctly, but um, maybe I'll just take some photos later and throw those up as well. I typically have my camera just a little bit further in on the model, but I wanted to be sure to be able to get all of the action on the palette here.
Oh, you can kind of see the blue popping up there.
Did you get some of that going through there? Oh, there you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You got a solid coat there.
Cool.
So if you're gonna do blue shoes, what are you thinking for the pants and the rest of the jacket and everything?
Okay, well, the metallic color, the dark metallic color,
Yeah.
was it Gris Metallizado? I see that for the pants. I'm gonna do a sky blue for the shirt, and then deep leather greenish for the jacket.
Hey, Potter Boy, thanks for coming through. Another friend from some of the painting streams that I've done in the past, and dropped a sub. Thank you for that.
Oh, so nice. It's like, oh, 4 months as a Hunters fan on here. Yay, love the minis.
I've got a yeah. I paint. Well, recently I haven't been able to as much as I used to, but I paint on Twitch on the Scabby Rooster channel fairly regularly, and usually it's during the day. So if you are ever looking to do some miniature painting down the road, if this has inspired you to try to get into it, and you feel like you want a little one-on-one time to be able to kind of ask some specific questions while you're working, you can find me over there as well. And I've got Amazon affiliate links that can guide you through kind of like some of the basics of like what I would recommend you purchase. So you can just kind of click through stuff if you are thinking about doing it. This is a kit that Reaper puts out that has a number of miniatures in it, but it also has paint and brushes. So you can just get everything all at once. And it's in a little carrying case. I think it comes out to $20, $23, something along those lines. It's just an exceptionally good deal given the number of paints that you get, and especially with the quality that Reaper paints kind of have. They are a very good company to buy your paints off of, especially your first paints. My top recommendations are Vallejo and Reaper when it comes to when you're starting out and beginning to kind of build up a collection of paints.
Ooh, nice. Like $20 sounds like nothing to start a new hobby to see if it's for you.
Certainly, with all the new lockdowns and everything happening, this might be the holiday to do it. If you've been thinking about
Oh
it.
man, don't even get me started on how many hobbies I've started and have like sitting out in my house
Well, let's
right
let's go
now.
through two of them. Tell us two of the hobbies that you started.
Okay, puzzles,
Mm,
like 1,000 piece jigsaw puzzles where I would put it together and then glue it to then hang it as wall decoration.
nice. There are some beautiful puzzles out there, and I do respect the hobby.
Yeah, well, I used to do that as a kid with my parents. We would do things like, the whole 3D clocks,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
3D grandfather clock.
Yeah.
Totally did that with my
Nice.
parents. And we would do the glue and we would put it up. So it's actually a little bit weird for me that I see that there other people will put a puzzle together and then take it apart and put it back in the box. Because I'm like, no, you have to glue that and put that somewhere.
Yeah, that's a trophy. You've accomplished something. You want to celebrate it. You don't want to put that back together. You've
Yeah,
already
it's like,
done
why
it
would you
once.
do that? Yeah, it's like you did it. Accomplish, was it a achievement unlocked? Get your trophy on.
Uh,
So it's like that, and then also another one, it's calligraphy. So I got a calligraphy pad and a series of inks, quill, and I've been doing that off and on during quarantine. It's helped me a lot with. It's so meditative. It's
mm-hmm.
just these beautiful brush strokes. Um, I was surprised how much I enjoyed it, actually.
I
So,
think I think that miniature painting has a lot to offer, and it's not as heavy as I think it has a rap for being. Most people have board games now, and there's there are so many games out there that have models in them already, and I always like transitioning people over to painting some of the pieces that come into those games. Like why just have those be bare? You can actually just get some paint and do a little bit of work on a weekend and have something special to play with next time that you pull that board game out.
nice. Oh, one thing that I have a question with this that I'm thinking about now, because I know with stuff with like nail art in particular,
Mm-hmm.
when you have something in your mind of how things will go, you wouldn't necessarily put down just one base coat, like let's say like all black. If you
Mm-hmm.
know that half of your nail you want your colors to like super pop with
Mm-hmm.
something, you'll do like a half black and a half white
Mm-hmm.
kind of a thing. Do people do that with miniatures? Because like
Absolutely.
I'm Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's called in miniature painting. It's a different thing. It's called zenithal highlighting, and
Okay.
there's a whole technique that I use all the time. I think I've got some here that are zenithal primed that I can show off. Oh, funny enough, here's Bonnie and Xander, the library bards, um,
Yay.
printed out as Hero Forge miniatures.
Oh my
I've had a
gosh.
couple of these that I did, but they are what you do is you paint the miniature in a darker shade. It doesn't have to be black, but it can be black, and then you, from your light source, you decide where your light is coming from. You then spray them white, and so that the white is cast down the same way that the light would strike it, and
Ooh.
you use very thin glazes over that. And by glaze I mean even thinner than what we're painting at. Um, and so when you do that, you really do see everything underneath.
Oh my gosh. I love how advanced that can get, where it's just like, hey, the light's going to be coming from here, so therefore all of this is going to be a bit lighter on this side. I very much enjoy that attention to detail.
And so if you're trying to do something like that, you can also paint or prime your miniature as we have here, so that it's a black, or you could paint the white miniature. You can prime with the white, and then come in with that solid color and slowly build it back up, so that if you were going to paint, the shirt, you wanted that to be really bright, so you could paint the shirt white. You just need to add enough layers to do that, and then you can paint over that whatever color that might be that you were trying to make really super super bright, and to have that pop.
Oof. Oof, yes.
But you're thinking in the exact right way. Like, that's exactly the kind of, I think, nail art knowledge that transfers so easily over to this medium.
Hmm. Trying to get a little more definition on these boots.
We are at 7:30. I'm okay. If we need to take a break, or if you need to walk away, I can still talk to chat.
No, I'm in it to win it.
Yeah, and chat. This is a little different than the format that we've done in the past. So let us know what you like and what you don't like. And I'm sorry, I'm also trying to keep track of the chat over here on my end. But if you have questions,
Yeah, no, I like other people like calligraphy, and Penguini11 is like, yes, must glue the puzzle. They're like, yes. Man. So that's why I like only have like three so far, because I have one astrology like one
mm-hmm.
that is it's on my table right now, and it's almost complete. And as soon as I have that bad boy up, I'm gonna actually put a clock mechanism on it, and then make that a clock, because I realized that my clock is my phone.
Mm-hmm.
My clock is my phone, or my clock is Alexa, and it's just, I should have an actual clock. So why not have one that I built out of puzzles?
Yeah, no, that's great. No, it sounds like it's a lot of fun. Okay, so if you, whenever you're comfortable, just move on. Again, it's that idea
Yeah,
of
let's
putting
get
down.
these pants on.
Yeah, so I've got the pants painted, I've got the boots painted, I've got the skin tone painted. I'm going to move over, for me, I'm going to paint the shirt. I'm going to do an off-white. So I'm going to use a kind of a pale parchment color, and then I'm going to build that up to a lighter white. And then I'm going to make the jacket, I think I'm going to make the jacket a dark brown.
Nice. Would
Yeah.
you recommend for me to do a white on her shirt first, and then do a second layer of sky blue?
Is blue where you're going to want it to end?
Yeah, I want her top to pop.
Um, yeah, so I would say what you should do is, that sky blue is pretty thick. I'm familiar with it. It's Vallejo. So I would say just thin down that and put a couple of coats down, and it should do what you want. And keep adding layers of that sky blue over adding a layer of white and then the sky blue. I don't think it's going to really save you any extreme amount of effort. Now, if you
Got it.
want, you can do the white. If you want, you can do the white. You can do anything here.
That's okay. I don't need to make more work for myself. If it do it all by itself, then I am game.
Right. And I think it will. I think it will. And then what we're going to do as well, when we go back over this, we're going to mix white into that sky blue. And we're going to make it even lighter. And it's going to desaturate it a little bit, but it's still going to have a highlight that you're going to be able to place on the very high edges of some of the elements of the shirt. And it's going to read as a really bright, vibrant blue.
Ooh, nice. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm kind of in love with this gunmetal gray.
Uh-huh.
Ooh.
Now, I'll tell you something about the gunmetal gray before you put it onto the model.
Okay.
That is a metallic paint.
That's metallic paint? Okay, I'll make sure that when I clean that I'll do it in my other cup.
Now, if you're going to use the gunmetal gray, this is also a nail art trick. If you use the gunmetal gray on the shirt first as a bottom coat, it's going to have a reflective quality to it, even when you put the thinner layers over it. So it's good.
Oh, so for like the sky blue, if I do this gunmetal gray first, and then later go over with the sky blue, that show from underneath?
It will, but it's a very specific look. But since this is like high sci-fi, I think it's a bad choice if it's what you want to do.
I think that's what I want to do.
Go for it. And so the trick with that, because you can use metals on cloth and even skin tones and things like that, but the trick then is that you have to glaze over it and slowly kind of remove some of those qualities so that it's a little more, it reads a little better. You're dulling it down, but it still has a reflective quality to it, so it would have like a shimmer to it. So if this is like some sort of crazy club shirt, it'll have some of that like reflective quality, like Mylar.
Well, you're like way ahead of me because I'm like just doing her pants, and her pants are the gunmetal gray.
Yeah.
So.
No rush. No rush. But when you get there, you get there.
Yeah. I was like, I've got a little bit of a whatchamacallit, a rhythm with it now.
Yeah.
So.
And so I'm going over all of the areas that I'm going to do the leather on the jacket, and I'm trying to make it so that it's different than the other browns and the skin tones that I've used. I'm trying to warm it up with a little bit of a darker tone, but I might put a little red in here, or even purple would add what I'm looking for.
I don't have a red.
Yeah, I didn't give you a red. I probably should have. That would have given you an opportunity to bring in some warmth. But you have a couple of other. Did I give you a yellow or an orange?
I have.
I do believe I gave you one really warm color that you should be able to use.
The warmest color I have is a chocolate brown.
Oh, well, I think that was probably the missing 10th paint, and I apologize.
It might have fallen out of my bag. I can check my bag that I did for the handoff in like just a second and see if maybe it just fell out of the box.
Yeah, that might have happened.
Yeah.
But if not, you're going to be okay. But, mixing, when you're trying to make lighter or darker colors or you're trying to adjust things, I think people oftentimes just assume that the right thing to do is to put black and white in their paint. And what that does is it desaturates the color. So it loses vibrancy. It doesn't feel as bright. It feels more washed out. And if you do that with everything, at the end of the day, your model is going to have a desaturated look, which, by the way, is an awesome style. But everything you do should be because you expect it to look that way. There are happy accidents and whatnot, but I think that planning that stuff out is always.
I get that. Like, plan for it like it's a mood.
Yeah, because you have more, control over the final results, right?
I love these pants. I want these pants. This Kristen Ortega is just like wish fulfillment for me.
I'm glad that it's working out, and miniature painting can be it's wish fulfillment for all kinds of people. Some of those wishes are to be orcs, but
are dragons.
Dragons, yeah.
Yeah, I see how you can get like really down and dirty with like some really fun colors with this. It dries pretty quickly too. I'm surprised at this.
Yeah, that's the thing about the acrylic, and it's really crucial to be able to get good results because if you, and there are advanced techniques. I do use some oil paints and some other things for certain techniques, but the majority of what you paint with is going to be acrylic, and it offers you a lot of flexibility, but it does have a downside, and that is often that it isn't very forgiving in that you can't really blend exceptionally well because it dries so quickly. There are products that you can use that are specifically made to slow down the drying time so that you can do all kinds of blends if you're doing something on like a cloak or a cape, or if you really want to get something into a transition. There are ways to do that. However, it's a little bit of an advanced technique, and I don't think it really is crucial to be able to get great results.
Well, I guess it all depends on what you are doing a miniature of for that. Like, for instance, if you're doing like Doctor Strange's cloak or something like that, and
Right.
you want to capture that dimensional element with it, then you might want to have some fun with trying out different reds, maybe put an orange and gold in there, give it like a swirl effect type of a deal.
Yeah.
So I could see that.
Hydra Lord is
I
using a paper towel as he paints. I, my friend, am a savage, and I am absolutely going to cover my hand. But I also, the reason that I do this on my finger here when I'm sharpening the tip of my paint, making sure that the consistency is right, is that part of my understanding of how I get good paint consistency, it's also a little tactile because I can feel it on my skin, and if it runs or moves or has too much thickness to it, it's just an additional way for me to kind of know that I need to go back to the palette and try to correct how that paint is coming out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and like some comments from chat. Phoenix Goth is like, white is a tricksy color to get smooth. Interesting. And also, oh, congrats, Jules does stuff 15. While we were painting, they were doing crochet and they just finished and they're gonna drop a picture in the Discord.
Outstanding, yeah.
Beautiful.
I love sharing hobby time, and at the end of it, taking a look at everything that was accomplished throughout the entire group.
Yes, it's like shared hobbies. What fun stuff. Oh man, yeah. I'm in love with these pants now. It's like why don't I own these pants? I will own these pants.
Dream it, be it, my friend. Dream
I
it, be
know, that's
it.
how manifestation works. Oh, and there was someone that brought a really good point. Oh, it was Potterboy 111. It's like, now I wish I'd added the minis onto my pledge for Altered Carbon.
Oh yeah,
And
they're gorgeous.
yeah, and they were wondering, do we know if they'll eventually be available to buy? Alex, our community guy, is in the chat room and answered that his guess is that if there are extra, there may be some kind of limited direct release to run off stock, but they're primarily an exclusive. So, yes.
They are amazing. I mean, they really are well done. And as somebody who stares at a lot of miniatures for hours on end, trust me, like these cameras are not doing them justice right now. The quality is A+. And so if you're a painter, I really feel like these are especially painters' models. While I can see all kinds of amazing uses for them on a game table of all kinds of types of games, not just Altered Carbon, but they're perfect for the RPG. I certainly think that someone who has the bug for really trying to replicate models in a way that imitate actors are going to be absolutely blown away by the faces, especially on these models.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's like, I'm not a person that writes poetry, but just her nose alone on this, it's just they went in there.
Yeah,
Nose and her eyebrows.
there are very clear um, structural sculpture elements that have been added here so that they have differentiation of cheekbone and the eye sockets. And I mean, that's kind of the era that we live in now because of digital sculpting. Miniatures are the best that they have ever been, and I love old school miniatures. I have quite a few that I have a deep fondness for. But back in the day, these were all sculpted by hand. Here's a model that I sculpted that is a it's like a monster. It's not like a person, but using green stuff and other elements, I put it together. I don't know if you can actually. The paint palette doesn't help that, but it is a little creature that I put together. This is a large creature that I sculpted by hand, and then painted for a Warhammer Age of Sigmar army. But this guy was made out of wire and tinfoil, and then I used just sculpty clay and green stuff to kind of pick out all the details. And so this guy was scratch built on one of my streaming weeks. We spent time putting that together, and then making the base for it and all of that. Every model used to be made by hand, and you would have to be as good at sculpting in this size as you would when you were painting them. Now with digital sculpting, though, you can really get in there and do some absolutely absolutely amazing stuff.
Ooh, are you talking like with like Hero Forge? I know it exists. I've made one of my home games where we play Invisible Sun. We made Hero Forge characters for that, but we didn't print them out. It was just like we made them to then share with each other. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I wasn't even thinking that you could get that sent to you and then you just paint it.
So I highly recommend that. I actually digitally print my own. So like you can get the digital file from Hero Forge for like $4, and then you can print them out if you have a digital printer or a 3D printer. However, they'll send them to you too. That's not what I'm talking about. There are programs that are specific sculpture programs where you can make your own model from scratch. They have pretty high learning curves, but once you get the hang of it, my favorite is Zbrush is the name of it. It allows you to design and build things in a digital space, and then you can export it and run it through some processing software so that then you can 3D print it. And that software, much like Photoshop or some other softwares that are specifically aimed at the art crowd, allow you to really change the way that you're interacting with the thought of making something physically. Because you can zoom in on the screen, and I could be working on that nose for that model and have it fill up a 27-inch screen, and that will allow me to get a certain amount of detail that really, I'm not going to say is impossible, but was unheard of before the digital revolution when it comes to model making.
Oh, okay. Gosh. With all of this fine detail, it does remind me. Hydra Lord, Ivan, he does like miniature painting and stuff, and he has a headset where it's just like where you can magnify in, I guess, with. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I can't really wear it with this, and I don't always use it, but I will use these, and they have lights on the top. I highly recommend these to anyone who is maybe you don't have a great hobby setup or a great space to use this, but it has a variety of magnifiers. It has a little battery-operated light, and then that way you're sure to get... The biggest mistake that you can make when you start painting miniatures is to do it in a dark cave. Yeah, you really want light because it's going to allow you to be able to see. And depending on the type of light that you're using, you can you can make your job a little harder when you start getting into some of the more intricate elements of color theory, because if your lights are really warm, they're going to cast orange hue onto your models. If they're really cool, they're going to cast blue. You want to find pure white, natural light. Daylight is some of the best light that you can paint models in. But if you're not right next to a window in the middle of the day, get something that has a good light on the top and has, these magnifiers, no matter, how good your vision is, these are pretty important if you want to really get in there and do some crazy stuff.
Ooh. Ooh, here I got a really good question from Resback390.
Yep.
Also, hey Resback390. Where it's like I never really considered painting minis because I thought it'd be a challenge for me. They're used to working on larger canvases, henna, face paint, airbrush, teas. Any thoughts on moving between the canvas sizes / types?
Any
Well, I guess what they're getting
oh,
at, and go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong, Resback. Where it's just like if you're used to doing bigger things, like on a canvas and everything like that, what's that transition to come down into miniatures?
just like doing the nail art that Markia does, I think that any sort of artistic pursuit is going to give you a leg up when you come into miniature painting because it's all applicable. Understanding how color works and understanding blending and other painting techniques on a canvas is going to give you an advantage when you start, of course. But if you are an airbrush artist, I highly recommend you just bring it over to the miniatures because airbrushing has a place in miniature painting. It is not, of course, as able to produce the same details that you can get with a brush. You're going to want to do additional work with a brush. But one of the things that I have found have just exponentially sped up my production is the use of airbrushing for certain blends and transitions and to set down base coats, the zenithal highlighting. All of that I do through an airbrush. So I'll even, like, if I was going to do blue pants and I was going to take some of that glaze and put it over that zenithal highlight, I would then do the blue really quickly and kind of try to do it as neatly as I could. Maybe do the jacket, maybe even like hit the boots a little bit, let that dry. And it's not going to look great because airbrushes are not as exact as a brush. But then I can go in and I've already kind of got those base coats started, which means that I go in and I clean up the lines and I start to layer everything on top. And as I'm doing that, I've saved myself a certain amount of time. It depends on the model, but if you're doing large armies of mythical creatures and they're all wearing armor, you can do all kinds of really great techniques with an airbrush that'll allow you to finish all of that work very, very quickly.
Not.
Are you hitting any kind of snags over there, Kia? We haven't really talked
Yeah,
about
I
where
think
you're at.
I think my sky blue is just a little too watery.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, that's okay. Let it dry. Don't try to keep adding paint on there. Dry
okay.
your brush off. Clean your brush off. Dry it off, and then just press it on the model in the areas that have the paint on it, and you'll actually suck some of that paint back up,
Okay.
and it'll clear it out of your way, and then just let it dry, and then remix your paint and go back at it.
Okay. Yeah, because it was trying to like travel to places that I didn't want it to go.
Yeah, so that definitely needs to be thickened up a little bit, and just go back and try it again.
Oh, so Nox, why are you trying to kill us all and not break undead?
Oh yeah, we could talk about that. Um, so Outbreak is a survival horror simulation game, and I have when I started to kind of like put together what I wanted to put you all through. I figured out all the story concepts, and I always work from narrative, so I was breaking things down and kind of got the base built up. And then I asked all of you to give me some backstories, and some character points. But I specifically asked each of you to make a person who was, at the end of the day, if you were just to, cast some casual judgment upon them, not good people.
Yeah.
To play people that were troubled and that had made some very serious mistakes and that had chosen to be selfish or even murderous, even before the zombie apocalypse occurred, right? Like, these people, at the end of the day, have a lot to atone for in the actions and the life that they've led. But all of them should have some redeemable qualities and some things that we see as, potential places for them to grow. And the thought would be that these characters are the ones that survive the apocalypse specifically because of some of the qualities that they possess, which are not all very attractive or even, socially acceptable. The fact that they are the ones who have survived this deep and long into a very traumatic apocalypse is almost inherently tied to choices that they've made, and the world became right for them, where the way that they were acting before, it kind of grew around their choices almost. And so everyone in the cast just came up with these really great stories, and we started to explore them. And for anybody who's watched what we've done, that these are complex characters, to say the least. Some of them are just downright borderline unlikable. But I love all of them, like everyone that we've brought through. But the idea that, talk about Luis just off the bat. Lampwick is a fascinating character, but you gotta, there's a part of you that just as you're watching the things that he does and the choices that he makes, he's so dangerously unlikable in some of those moments where Luis plays Lampwick to a T and decides to do something that really does either cost the group some sort of security or puts himself at risk, right?
Yeah. Or it's like turns NPCs against the entire group because of actions.
Yeah. But knowing the story of Lampwick makes us so much more forgiving. That if Luis had just pulled that character out and we didn't know about what happened with Lampwick in the past, then I think it would be a lot harder to have these conflicting feelings about the characters in their position, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to root for them. And the idea that this isn't a world that rewards the sort of heroism and fairy tale bullshit that often exists in other games. And that's okay. I love playing fairy tale bullshit, but it is bullshit. The idea of human conflict and the thought that a choice that you make is going to have these really powerful repercussions and consequences. You're dealing with life and death literally every single day, because not only is the world out to kill you, but you don't have the security blanket that we all are wrapped around in our modern world, right? Because, some 2020 has proved to us that security blanket is not as strong as we might have thought. But the idea that they're still in civilization, we still have a shared understanding, and there are laws in place that protect us, and we have infrastructure, that there are hospitals and there are things that we can do to protect ourselves and help ourselves as a community. But all of those things, if you remove them and you just have a world of uncertainty around you, I think that kind of creates this really interesting anvil and hammer of story. And that is one of the things that I love about Outbreak, is that the system has been designed to serve the game, and the game wants you to suffer, but wants you to enjoy the suffering and to explore the suffering. Because if you had a healing potion every time, like for instance, Lampwick is messed up right now. I don't know. Like, I'm sure that I'm gonna have to get in there and kind of look at some of the healing rates and things. I don't know when Lampwick is going to be okay, if Lampwick is ever going to be fully okay. You know?
Yeah, I mean, what's the likelihood of us finding another doctor that will actually work on him? I mean,
Right.
we'll just have to see what might happen there.
And the way that you've played Achira and brought in her story and her complications with the guilt that she carries around her brother, but also some stuff that we've revealed and some stuff that we haven't yet revealed. The thought that, you know, when you make a choice and the dice tell you you have so many degrees of failure, right? Like you've failed on this. It isn't necessarily cut and dry as to how that story tells itself. You know, the way that I play it, at least, is, you know, we pull kind of into a sidebar and we work together to start to unravel how maybe that came about. Like, what is the most punishing thing that could happen here for 5 degrees of failure? Sometimes it's not that the gun jams or misfires. It's something else, you know, something else in the world. And you and Lampwick, especially last session, really exhibited some of, I think, the best pivots that can happen in a game based on atrocious, just absolutely atrocious luck. And it happens. Like, you will roll poorly. But when you're dealing with skill sets for characters that are not just stacked like superheroes, nobody's a superhero. Nobody is a knight in shining armor in this game. You're set up to have to kind of fight for every single success. And the way that you do that is through preparation, heavy use of the gear that is available to you, making sure that the abilities and the skills that you have are giving you as many amplifications as possible, that you're in a situation that's going to give you the best possible result. It's
like location hazards.
Yeah, I mean, we joke, but that has saved your life.
It really, really has. Like, oh my gosh. I don't know where I would have been if I hadn't gotten those well, I mean, I put a lot of gestalt in my competency points ability. I forget the exact name of it right this second. I think it's called acumen.
Yeah.
And I've put a lot in my damage threshold to get that up. I don't know where I would have been. Lampwick might be dead if I hadn't shot into the crowd of zombies, but I don't know.
No, I'll pull back the curtain here. Lampwick was dead. You saved Lampwick's life. Lampwick would have been gone, but you made a choice, and this has less to do with the mechanics and more of the dynamics of the situation. But you made a choice. You mitigated some horrible loss in the dice and in that realm of luck. But you mitigated it with narration, and you made a choice that put yourself in a bad position. And like, for me, that's the narrative teeter-totter that I'm always willing to dance on. So I will in that moment, I'll start to think about how that plays itself out. And what that did is the doctor, who was 100% against Lampwick because of the choice that Lampwick made to push a perfectly lovable character into a pile of zombies to save himself.
Ooh.
Who was healthy, by the way, who had no other reason than he might have slowed Lampwick up, and that wasn't even definite. Pushed that character into a pile of zombies and questionably helped himself. Certainly prevented himself from being in a situation where the zombies were going to be upon him. But it was a very temporary situation. The cost of that was that the doctor saw that happened.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
You know, that was your golden ticket. That was the person that was going to be an ally, that was not only going to be able to fix up wounds and help people, but also is carrying this understanding of antibiotics and producing medicine in this apocalyptic world. So you have a lot of damage to repair, but what you decided to do was to fire in there when Lampwick was, by the way, that was it. That was it for Lampwick. However, you made a really dynamic choice to save Lampwick at the end of the day. And, you know, we know what happens next, but
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I I had a particular idea of how Achira would be, and she before I actually started playing her, I just pictured someone completely in the shadows, antisocial, out for herself, and more likely than not was going to try to steal whenever possible.
mm-hmm.
And then as play progressed, all of a sudden, she's
I feel like she connected with Lampwick as like she did with her brother previously,
Oh.
where I kind of feel like there's something there, maybe in like their physicality, or maybe in the way that Lampwick behaves, so that then Achira is probably very unhealthily casting that family element onto Lampwick. And I think that's, well, it's already kind of been her downfall.
Well, since we're at that spot already, I kind of feel safe to talk about it a little bit. In my perspective, I have seen that. And I do think that that has occurred. I do think that the familiar aspect of the loss of your brother has been played to. But given that Lampwick is privy at least to a little bit about yourself, I think that what Achira needs to do is reevaluate her situation because, in my perspective, Achira has been played by Lampwick, and
Ah,
that
I can see that.
Lampwick has kind of used some of Achira's, certainly like that's what Lampwick always does is like finds the way to be saved, finds the way out of the situation. And listen, it's a beautiful dynamic. Just like Achira is the character that's always going to find their way out of the situation and get the fuck out. And anyone who's intelligent knows that if you hang around with Achira, you're going to be able to get probably closer to getting out of a situation should you need to, because Achira is always 1 foot out the door, which is a flaw and a benefit.
Mhm.
And then we've got, yes, I agree with this. We're talking a lot about those two characters, but let me be clear. Melee Damage and Michelle Wynn Bradley are
Oh
amazing
yeah.
additions. I love the story, especially that we are telling with Michelle's character about a wild child. These are kids
Mhm.
who grew up in the apocalypse and who don't know about the world before. They didn't lose anything. This is all they've ever had. And that story is one that I really wanted to tell because I haven't seen it done right. I haven't seen a story that took it and did it in the way that I felt was appropriate, which is to say that these kids who grew up in the middle of an apocalypse like this would be feral. It would be a lot of kind of Lost Boys esque cultural loss and confusion where you would look at remnants of the old world and they would make no sense to you whatsoever. Like, why? Think of all the frivolous things that we do as a society, that if your only real importance in life was to get food, fight off your attackers daily, and to survive another day, like, how would you react to, certain things that we as a society do? Like, what would football look like? Like, what would what would a Pokemon stuffed toy mean to you when all of these things around you neither give you the ability to eat or to survive another day?
Wha- Yeah, I kind of love that, like the whole concept of Michelle's character, and then also how she's playing her.
Yes.
Where, and it's like I like her flashback sequences a lot, where it's with her and her sister.
Mm-hmm.
Like all I can
Olive.
think of, Olive. Yeah, it's like all I can think of is why isn't Olive here now? Where's Olive? What happened to Olive? So seeing these interactions that she has with her sister, I'm just I'm just waiting for that one where it's like, did she turn on Olive? Because
Mm-hmm.
wow. And I'm kind of expecting it. And then also I'm kind of like, oh, but did she though?
There have been already brief flashbacks where it wasn't definitively that Olive had died, but there were flashbacks that we've already done where we witnessed and dealt with Juniper and Olive in a very bad situation and them being separated. As to whether or not that was the end of like when they saw each other last, we don't know. But I will say that, well, I know. But there's a lot to explore there, and her relationship with her twin sister is one of my favorite things that Michelle brought to the table. Was the idea that this person, had spent the apocalypse with somebody that they'd shared a womb with, but that they were these wild kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, not having anyone in the world, that's all that she's ever had, right? And so a lot of what Michelle has been playing up on and doing a really good job with is trust. And, I don't feel too bad at putting out a worm on a hook when I put two redheaded twins in this community. Because Michelle did what I didn't know. I thought actually there were two paths to that. That Michelle's character, Juniper, would hate the twins immediately, like hate the fact that there were twins there, or she would see a connection and do everything that she could to protect them. And it makes a wonderful dynamic, because everything that we've seen from Juniper up until now has not been very, very heroic. It hasn't been, certainly, June putting herself out there for much of anything. Like, everybody's been, especially in those first sessions that we did together, everyone was very much kind of on their own ship. And that has slowly, I think the forest, after you were in the forest and you made your way back to the farm, everything started to change where the characters started to blend together a little bit.
Yeah, I still remember when Juniper was up in the tree, and then the singing preacher lady came up, and Juniper's like, I'm gonna shoot her.
I'm going to shoot her, but I'm also not coming down to help you.
Yeah.
Was what she did. She left all of you down there. And in fact, she was being very quiet because she wasn't going to reveal her position in case things went sideways. Which, all of those are really good, survival techniques. Like that, there's nothing wrong with those choices. I was painting the hair, and I got a little over ambitious there. And so what I've done is I've cleaned off my brush, and I've dried it out, and I was doing what I told Markia to do, which is take the brush and just kind of dab it over the area that you might have overpainted, and then let it dry and go back in. If you're painting in thin coats, you really can't screw this up.
Yeah. And then also, thank you, Alex, Red Eye, and Jules Does Stuff. It was just like, nice job on the mini. Thank you. It's my first time.
Yeah, I mean, you're a little ahead of the game because of your background. You said that you'd done a few things before, but I think it's just patience and not being afraid of it.
Right. There's just so much detail in it that it's like, if you flick the brush and then it gets on something else, you're like, ah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of that, and that's where control comes in, and that just takes time. But also tools, like you said about what Ivan uses, these magnifiers. Or, for instance, I oftentimes, because when I was streaming, I would do this more, I can pull out this kind of a magnifying light, and these are pretty helpful, and you can pull your miniature into that, and you can see them a lot more clearly under it.
Ooh.
See what I can...
Yeah, and I did the idea that you said where it's doing the metallic, and then I did the sky blue on top of it.
Yeah.
And I love how it looks.
Outstanding. I'm glad.
It's very cyberpunk.
Yeah, I can see it from here, actually. We've got it up on the screen. So, and then, you listen, it broke. I knew this was going to happen too. I knew that we were going to get attached to these characters, and then we were going to be killing them. This game, more than any other, was there is no safety net. There may be, I will play ball. I will narratively try my best as a game master and storyteller to keep things on a appropriate track. I don't want a character to just die a horrible, pointless death. But guess what? In the real world, in the way that this game has been built, in the way that we want to tell these stories, bad things happen without any explanation. And you may think you know what's going to happen next, but then that bus comes out of nowhere and you get hit by it. That is not a narrative structure, but it's life, and it's kind of how it works. And so when you're doing something like a stream or even a tabletop game with your friends at home, understanding that there's a little bit of a push and a pull there, and finding those dynamic moments. And at the very least, what I always hope to do is, no matter what, giving the player a character death that is appropriate, or at least has some significance, even if it's just to us in the moment, and even if it is completely out of left field and a gun goes off, they roll horribly, and a shotgun blows up in their face, a la Bugs Bunny, right? And they end up dying horribly without very much grace, and then dying in that moment. There are still ways that we can make that fit together. And Abigail dying was really, in my mind, it couldn't have been better. But at the same time, there was so much more that I wanted to explore with Abigail that it was hard to let her go, because the character was so good.
Well, as a GM, then how do you come to terms with that? I mean, how do you not go into that place where you end up being like, well, maybe I can, narratively do this to save them, to just be able to keep them around a little bit more? I mean, in a way, Abigail is still with us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And that was built into kind of the story structure, so that even a dead character has weight, to be honest, there's not a lot that you can do unless you're willing to cross that boundary and disregard the truth of the mechanics. And for me, we're just moving forward, and we're going to let that help us craft the story. And that, for me at least, the way that I'm running Rag and Bone, or trying to at least, it is a little different than the way that I would run D&D. Because in D&D, or some other game like D&D, where there was a high dose of magical realism, and you had a lot of fantastic elements, and people could be brought back from the dead at the flip of a hat, I would then bake in alternatives to help that character come back in different ways. Now, granted, I've sort of done the same thing here, but it's just not in a necessarily what you would refer to as a positive rebound.
Yeah, I'd say not entirely positive, but very productive. Mm-hmm. The return of Abigail. They're ambitious. They're not just resting on their laurels.
No. And so I like Rowan. I think that Rowan, the idea of Rowan and who Rowan is, as we start to explore that, is going to be even better than what we started with. And I think that we wouldn't have had Rowan if we had leaned too heavily in, twisted fate even more than, as a storyteller or a game master, you have the right to do any of those things. It's just a question of what sort of mood and reliance do you want to place on those mechanical elements, right? So I think what we have with Rowan is a whole new story that is going to be very interesting. And I also like the place that Rowan is coming from. I like the Rowan archetype, which is a little different than what we've seen so far. But I don't want to say too much because she's so brand freaking new.
Right. Yeah, they're in a tight spot right now. Like whether they're in the mine shaft or out in the field.
Yeah, yeah. And I honestly, I'm very excited because I have done the work already to extrapolate a lot of those situations, and I have a lot of the options laid out, and it just kind of depends on where all of you end up going. But I really am excited to see what happens next because so much of it is going to be determined by what you choose to do. And I don't just mean that as like are you going to take the left tunnel or the right tunnel. I mean that as the entire campaign right now is on the head of a needle that could be shifted based on how you interact with these NPCs. The larger concept for Rag and Bone is that we are, along with the Scry program, we are working ourselves up to a community-based campaign that has a lot of different elements, that has a lot of survivor camps and settlements that you are going to be able to interact with over a map. And so you'll be able to click open a map and you'll be able to choose what area you want to send certain resources to. And by doing that, you're going to help to define the material economy of this portion of Pennsylvania. And you're going to be determining which of these survivor areas are strong and which are weak. And that's all on the audience. You know, it's not just going to be, hey, let's get a, fun stuff like we did the tank because that battle was let's see how far we could go, and we put the tank in there and it was not cheap. I honestly I did not
Thank goodness.
I didn't think we were gonna get it. I didn't think we were gonna see it.
Chat was like, "There's a tank. Let's take this."
Yeah.
Like went for it. Is it possible to like fall in love with a miniature? Because like I kind of love this miniature.
Well, that's the right attitude to have. I'm glad you're having fun, and I bet it's perfect. I've only seen it a couple of times, but we'll take a closer look here in a minute. We are at 8:30. We're going to go for another half an hour. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We end at 9. So I'll see if I can speed up a little bit to at least get some other major things done with her.
There are a couple of things that I'd like to put out there, and so we have that wash that you have been
Right.
told not to use. But as
Yes.
soon as everything is dry, I'd like to introduce you to ways that you can use washes to add some quick definition and contrast to your miniatures.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm loving this model. This thing is it's silky smooth. The resin is so nice that it's really easy to pick out those crisp details. And honestly, I didn't do any gap filling on this model at all. And I can it's seamless. I can no longer see the joins between the arms and the jacket or where the neck was attached. It all has fit together very, very nicely.
Yeah, if you didn't tell me that this was something that you assembled, or if I hadn't seen that you assembled the one that you're doing right now, I would have assumed that this came like this.
This is not going to show much of anything well. Let me see if this one does any better. I could also readjust my camera, but I don't necessarily want to go through all of that.
Oh.
It's not great. It's a little distorted under the magnifying glass, but you get the broad strokes. I'll take pictures and we'll show it off. Again, we had to sacrifice a few camera moves that I usually use when I'm painting miniatures due to the fact that we brought in a guest for the way that we were pulling that stuff through on the Zoom call. But what I'll do is I'll take some really good photos and I'll put them up there.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
You
yeah.
should do
it
the
feels
same.
Like with this would be like photo stuff. Jules Stuff 15 was like, yeah, hype tank. Where we had
The hype
the
tank,
hype
yeah.
tank. I love that.
I mean, I'm glad people had fun with it. It was fun to kind of watch the chat explode, getting that done. So a lot of people were sitting on points apparently because I didn't
Thank
think it was going to
gosh.
happen. Yeah, but it
Thank
did.
gosh.
It did save lives, and it did actually make it possible for you to make it a little deeper in, um, along with the walls, which that was one of the first kind of immediate options that we gave folks in the Scry chat, and they bought a great deal of time for the players by adjusting how those walls were going to withstand the large amount of pressure that they were under. Um,
Right.
I do think it was a little inevitable once that dynamite went off. But if the dynamite hadn't gone off, it would have been possible for those walls to have survived the night.
Ooh, that dynamite though.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Tia Bernstead. Welcome to the stream.
Hi, and thanks for coming
Doing
by.
a altered carbon miniatures exclusive that came with being a backer. I did not just wipe my nose. I think I just used my paint hand to be like
You are going to, yeah.
perfect.
It's not a perfect system yet. You'll figure it out. So once you get to a point where I can talk to you a little bit about washing, and I can talk about it, I guess, now, and then I'll do a little bit of it on mine. So there are a number of different products that you can get when you're getting miniature paints. One of them is referred to as a wash. This is pretty basic stuff, so some of you I know are going to be rolling your eyes and just be like, we know it. So a wash is a specialized thinned material. Now, again, we were talking about how mediums and how binders and pigment are mixed together. Well, when you use a wash, what you're doing is you're using a very thin material that is going to find its way into the crevices and the recesses of the model, the deeper areas, because it is so thin. And the material is just made that way. Technically, you can use a normal acrylic paint, and if you thin it down enough, you're starting to do a technique called a wash as opposed to a material called a wash. Same thing with glazes and paint that is specifically referred to as a glaze. You're dealing with different consistencies, but you're also dealing with different binders and mediums. And a glaze material is a lot more transparent. It's almost ink-like in its quality. And washes, and in fact inks, can be used to produce effects that immediately kind of create this depth. So the most important thing is that if you're going to go buy little $2 bottles of Vallejo, you can get a wash. And this is a wash. Citadel's washes are amazing. I don't promote all of Citadel's products, but I will say that as far as Citadel wash goes, you can't do much better than that. It is expensive as all get out, but this is a perfectly serviceable bottle. It's a couple of dollars. Really easy. But as you can see here, it doesn't work like normal paint. It's very thin, but it has a kind of a viscous medium quality to it. And you can make your own washes if you get more medium. Just using water is eventually going to cause the pigment to disperse and become spotty. And that's not going to produce a good quality of a result. So it's all about that medium. And if you get a bottle of clear acrylic medium, you can start to cut that down with water and start to make a material that you could put a little bit of paint into and create a wash. You don't need to do all that because they have these little bottles. I say get a black and a brown and you're good to go. And once you do that, you can thin it down. We're watching Kia. I'm hoping we can switch back over to my overhead here. And when we do that, I'll walk you through the exact thickness of that wash consistency.
Did you do her eyebrows? Because I'm thinking of being extremely ambitious right here and like try to do those eyebrows with the same color that I have for her hair, but I also don't want to mess up her face.
Everybody is different, and I will say that her eyebrows are very well sculpted and easy to achieve, But what you should do is if you're gonna try to paint that, you need to get a really really sharp tip on that brush, and really only use enough paint to barely transfer that over, and just be patient and go over it slowly. Because if you do that, I think you're gonna have better results. I paint eyes, and I'm not doing that on this model right now. Honestly, the eyes are so fine and proportionate to the rest of the model that trying to paint these eyes, I don't think would lend great results.
Okay.
Because when you look at other models from companies that are a little more cartoonish or have more of a caricature to the face, you find that the eyes are considerably bigger for that sake. You can definitely paint these eyes. But I think that they're so well defined that the wash is going to do what we want. So I'm going to do this with my model, and what I've done is I've taken a little bit of this. This is a sepia shade, and I'm going to just thin it out, sepia. It's just going to be thinned out on the palette here a little bit, and I'm going to end up just touching it along the recesses of the model that I want to bring through. I think one of the misnomers about using washes that people get fixed into is that you have to slather it over the model, and that doesn't produce good results necessarily. In some cases, if you're doing like a wolf with fur or a larger model that doesn't have as many intricacies or levels to the face, it might be the right thing to do. But I like treating washes as paint, meaning that I'm only going to put them where I want them and try to control their application. That doesn't mean that it's wrong to just slap it on there, let it dry, and be done. Plenty of people do that with their models, and they get really good results. So as soon as we switch over, I'm going to go ahead and pop that onto this model, and that'll be probably the end of the serious. Okay, so like right here, if you look, you can see how thin that wash is, and it does have like a different consistency to it than just this paint. So glazing and washing are ways that you can add that definition. Again, making sure that I have the right amount of material on my brush, sharpened tip, and I'm going to go into the eye sockets. I'm going to go underneath the nose and across the mouth. I'm going to go underneath the jawline on the neck, and I'm going to just let that wash do its job and try to keep it controlled. I don't want it everywhere. I don't want to overdo it. Also, along the hairline, I'm going to put a little bit of that wash. Inks are a super wonderful and flexible tool, but again, using them can be a little tricky because of, again, the consistency and trying to get them to apply correctly. So there are so many different tools that you could use when it comes to doing these things that my best piece of advice is to just start to explore it all.
Oh, I like that advice. That's good advice. We got a comment from, let's see who this was. I think it was, Phoenix Goth. It's just like, hey, if Nox is up to it, we could do a semi-regular painting stream. And Alex was like, this kind of up to Nox and Markia. They're the producers for this.
Well, I've had a good time, and I'd do it again in the future, but it just depends on how much Hunter's Entertainment painting we can get done.
Right? Because there's other Altered Carbon, the exclusives that we could do. So,
but as of yet, that's really all of those. That is the model line from Hunter's Entertainment at this moment. Is those 4 boxes? They are amazing boxes. They're really well made, and they're well worth the effort. But maybe more in the future. You should definitely get on social media and let hunters know that that's something that you're interested in.
Right?
Yeah, especially with like products that we've already put stuff out for. Definitely let everybody know. Let the world know. Put it up on Twitter. Put it on Instagram, and just say, hey, where are the Hunters Entertainment miniatures at?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely how you get things done, get things made.
Yeah. I have it on good authority that Hunters pays very close attention to what the community is asking for.
Oh, heck yes. Definitely have their fingers on the pulse of things like that. Want to give you the things that you're passionate about. So if this is one of the things that you're passionate about, let us know.
So we've gone over all of this. I will let this dry now, and then the kind of the final, to do just a basic paint job and get the model completed. The final thing that I'm going to do is pick out some highlights, and to do that, I'm using the same colors that I've already used on the model, and I'm going to either desaturate or thin out, or I'm definitely going to thin out, but I'm going to brighten up some of the colors that I've used by either using a pure version of the color that I had either darkened before, or by introducing a little bit of yellow or white or off-white to that color to create a brighter tone that I can then use to pick out where the light would be the brightest. And
that's some fun stuff.
And you can do that over and over and over again. The technique is...
You do that after the wash?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the wash might actually, especially, like I used it on my skin tone, on all of my leathers, and it does have a tendency to darken things down. And so, having done that now, I want to pick out and bring up some of those highlights. When I'm doing paint streams, we have a thing called a drop counter. When I drop either the miniature or something else, a paintbrush.
Did you just drop something?
I did. But it was the first time this whole stream, so I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that we're hanging out. I'm not dropping things the way that I used to.
Oh, it's weird that this reminded me of you saying that reminded me of this. But so why did you decide to have one of us be a traitor and then not tell anybody who that is? I'm curious.
Because I wanted to, the first thing that I wanted to do with that, and I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to spoil anything, and I certainly don't want to ruin anything on the game side, as it has not yet resolved itself.
Don't use pronouns, just in case.
Yeah, no, there will be no pronouns. But I wanted to lend a sense of the uncertainty of the world. And I decided that given that I've already made all of you these horrible people, that I wanted one of you to be a little bit worse than the others. And to make sure that no matter what you were doing, there was an undercurrent of questioning that is a little meta. I could have just let it be and not said anything. But I wanted you and the audience to be in on that there is something not right. And it's a little outside of the character knowledge that you would typically have. However, the sense of the world that it creates is very much in line with what I think that the players should always have, which is no matter what, you are on your own at the end of the day in this world. You can help each other, you can support each other, you can survive another day, but there is so much danger, and there is so much loss of civilized behavior that it is hard to say with any certainty as to what tomorrow is going to bring for you. And I wanted to make the playing field unreliable. So that is why I did it. And I think we are deadly close to some major, major revelations. I'll say that, but that's all that I'll say about it.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean,
and I think when it is revealed, when it is revealed, as to what the hell is going on. I think I'm going to get letters. But I'm okay with that. So when you created Achira, you had been kind of given an outline of kind of what the game was going to be and what we were looking to do and what we were trying to pull through. What made you tap into the brother story? Why that story?
Well, because I wanted to give her that catalyst where it's like she was one of those people just like any other person where it's like, I'm a good person because I don't do X, Y, and Z. And then I wanted there to be a tipping point for her where it's like, where you cross that line to where, no, you're a bad person. And now that you've crossed that line, and as it goes on, there's another line in the sand in front of you that you also cross until you look behind you and you don't know where you started.
Yep.
So I thought having someone be that important to her and have her be of a certain age with it, that I just wanted that catalyst and that line to happen for her earlier. Like, she knew better. She totally knew better, and she chose to kill anyway, kind of a thing. Then honestly, once you do something like lead your brother's lover to their death because of what happened with him, then what else are you capable of? So it's like abandoning kids? Yep. Yeah. And then there's other things that...
Oh, there's more. We haven't gotten to it yet.
I know, right?
I absolutely love the place that we left your last flashback off at, though. The fact that she was locked in a sea container, a giant shipping container, for the seriously the first few weeks of the apocalypse. You were starving to death in a metal box.
Yeah. Dear God.
That'll put you, that'll put your worldview into question right there.
I mean, I love that flashback happened because it also explains why in the world Achira refused to go into the bunker with the rest of them.
Yeah, she does not like we don't know if it's like full on claustrophobia, or claustrophobia, but it is certainly it's certainly not your comfort place.
Definitely not. So, all right, I finally got to the wash level.
Okay, so go ahead and put some of that material on your paper plate, and you'll immediately see some of the qualities that I was talking about. And what you want to do is just go ahead and treat it the same way that you've been treating the other paint, but only use it in the deeper recesses of any area that has that warmer tone that you want to add it to. I wouldn't necessarily add that on anything that's blue.
Okay.
I do. There's something to be said, and I've done it before, where you just paint a miniature, you put the base coats on, and you slop a wash over the whole thing, and then pick out a couple of little highlights and then call it done. That is a perfectly serviceable technique that produces what's commonly referred to as a tabletop standard model, which means that's a model you're going to play games with. It's been painted correctly. It has paint on it. It's not just gray shame, but it
shame.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, if you're around the hobby at all, if you get into this, you'll find that your eyes are sometimes larger than your time, in that you have to paint all the models that you want, and this hobby takes time, and it's easy to kind of have more models than free time.
Oh, do I need to water down the wash?
No. So you can't. You can. It's not a don't. You certainly can. Okay. But it's going to become a glaze if you break it down any further.
Okay.
And so the wash that I gave you is pretty much ready to go. Over, if you have any kind of browns that you want to try to accentuate, you can certainly use it on the skin tone a little bit, and it'll help create some definition.
Nice.
You did choose a slightly darker skin tone, so what that's going to do is that's going to make that wash a little less effective. And so with light skin tones, you lean on your shadowing, and on darker skin tones, you lean on your highlighting a little bit more. So it's just kind of the opposite of the way that you would deal with those different tonalities. So when you start picking out details after this stage, what you're going to do is, and we may not get to it.
Ooh.
All right, did you get it on the model? Is that what happened?
No, no, I like this when I did it over her hand because I was like, oh, I'll just do it on the little bit like underneath where I won't see it.
Yeah.
But then it's like making her skin like pop.
Yeah, so go for it. And it's definitely going to do that. And it's depending on the color that you're working with, you can use it to then kind of get those shadows to come out. And when you go over it with that final coat of highlights, it's going to bring it right back up a little bit, and you're going to have a really well-painted model ready to go.
Nice.
Boy, these eyebrows really are pretty intense. I would
Right?
I would say you have to do the eyebrows on this model, but that's
Right?
yeah. That's some next level stuff.
There's so much to it in those eyebrows. You just kind of have to.
Yeah, again, it's all about that face sculpt. So again, like when I'm doing something like that, I don't use pure black really for anything. Black and white are the hardest tones to render correctly because you really, the purity of those two colors, you have to mix other things with them to get something dynamic. So like for instance, you can make a warm white by mixing oranges and browns and reds to it, or you can make a cool white by mixing blues and all that to it. But you almost never want to use just pure white, pure black to do something because it doesn't have any depth. And when you really look at black and white in the real world, it's reflecting or grabbing colors that your eye is just barely perceiving. I'm going to paint these eyebrows.
Yes, get in on that eyebrow love. I'm telling you, there's just something about it.
Yeah, it's actually not that hard because they're protruding off the face in a way that if you just take the edge of your brush and tap it along the side there, you can really, really get it. I feel like this is where I'd want my visor. It's the same thing with eyes. Like,
Ooh, gorgeous. Love it.
I just did it all on her skin tone. I just love the way that it pops. Gives it like a nice little dimension. I stand.
and I mean, the really great thing about all of this is that no matter what you do to the model, again, as long as you're working with light coats, you can always go back and correct things, make things smoother.
Yeah, and I actually didn't lose that much definition on her face, which is nice. In fact, it's still pretty poppin'. I like that.
I don't know if chat can see, but it looks like Kia's got pretty much the whole thing down.
Yeah, I mean, I've got her.
Yeah, I mean, that's a painted miniature. And she's ready to go. She stepped straight out of a club, ready to party. I love the metallic really did work out.
Yeah, she's gonna kick some butt with these blue boots.
Yeah.
And this is before she gets the, metallic hand. I decided to go just like full skin colored. I kind of wanted to do, oh my gosh, who's that Marvel character? Oh my gosh, I love her. It's a Marvel character that has a metallic hand. She's in Luke Cage. I was her for Halloween. I can't remember. This is gonna drive me insane. Oh, thank you. Penguin 11's like, she's beautiful. Thank you. And thanks, Nuts. Oh my gosh. It's been so much fun. I almost don't want to touch her anymore with washes.
Yeah, well, I
'Cause
mean,
I'm like,
it's a choice, and you got to make choices. So it's up to you. If you're happy, then call it done.
Yeah, I am gonna go in there and I'm gonna tag those eyebrows.
Yeah, yeah, just a little touch.
Just a little
And then
tab of
if you,
eyebrow.
especially on the forehead and the bridge of the nose and the cheeks, the cheekbones, um, take just a very, very subtle highlight, something a little brighter than your original skin tone, and just pick out little areas, little planes of the forehead, cheekbones, nose, and it will immediately bring the eye right back into that face, so that you can draw visual direction kind of into the face. Because again, like we talked about earlier, it's kind of where people's eyes automatically go, trying to relate with whatever it is they're looking at.
Ooh, these eyebrows.
And I mean, you could spend hours perfecting a face, and then glazing is really where it changes, because then you can start to put in really like blushes, and you can start to change, you put some more blood into the warmth of the face. But all that just takes time, and as you start to build on it, you get to do more and more with it. But we've had 3 hours of solid conversation and miniature painting. We're about 5 minutes off. Do you have anything that you want to ask, chat, before we say goodnight?
Yeah, go ahead and hit us with any questions, chat. And I love like Penguini11 is like, know when it's done.
Know when it's done is something
Know
that,
when it's done. Oh,
yeah,
thank you, y'all. Like
it's
Resback39 is like, looks good. Thank you. It's my first one.
it's
My first one
definitely
ever.
it's also a potential downfall for any miniature painter, is to be stuck on the same, like trying to make something perfect, right? Move on, be happy with what you did, and then pick up another miniature and try something new.
Yeah. I particularly like that when I get my stuff, because I think I backed it at the 250 level, because I was like, I'm getting that unicorn carrying case. That's why I've been very involved with like
I think that unicorn carrying case kind of surprised people in the company at how exceptionally well that thing did.
and I was all about it. As soon as I saw that at that level, I was like, yep, that's me.
That's the
That's me
level.
right there.
That's the level. I mean, putting a I love props and things that are like from the world, that you then get to like display, or use in your games, or even just store your games in. What I love those kind of props, and I think that that's a really cool addition to everything that was offered.
Yeah, I'm so glad that they had that. I mean, because when I was looking at it, um, do I want to paint that gun? I think it should look the way that it is. When I was looking at it, and like Ivan's my friend, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna look at this and at least share it and stuff. And then I was like looking at all the things, and I was like, I'm not just gonna share this. I'm having it.
Yeah, it
Like I don't
genuinely.
even know when I'm going to run an altered carbon game to utilize everything that I got, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm gonna have that option, and I'm gonna have all those exclusives with it.
Yeah, I mean the book is gorgeous too. So you could do a lot worse. You could do a lot worse.
Yeah. Thanks, Phoenix Goth. It's like the offer to paint with you still stands. Ton
Huh.
of pics in the Discord. Oh, awesome. I will take a look at that like afterwards. Oh, okay. Hit Boy 2727. So does anyone have any idea when the Altered Carbon RPG book will come out?
Again, I'm going to point to Alex. I don't have that
Yeah.
info off the top of my head, but Alex is in the chat right now. Alex Red Eye, and is definitely going to have an answer for you.
Yeah, right.
It's amazing, and there's a couple of supplements that are coming out, and some things that are brewing in the background. It's
Yeah.
it's just a really complex world, and there's a lot to explore. Um, yeah, So
Oh, Alex has answered. Very soon.
very soon.
Everything is being sorted and packed for backers, beside the carrying case. And we'll probably have another update next week.
Nice.
Yes. Um, so yeah, we're basically there, Knox, for
Outstanding. This was a lot of fun.
yeah, this was so much fun. I mean, I'm a Virgo, so like attention to detail
Mm-hmm.
is like just one of those buttons for me where it's just like, yes. It's like, yes, get in there with it, every crevice. Like make it sparkle, make it shine, or make it ugly. It's like do it. Do it with intention. So I mean that's where I live. But I this has been very enjoyable, like more enjoyable than I thought it would be.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you had a good time, and I hope people in chat had a good time. And if you haven't seen me paint miniatures before, come hang out with me at the Scabby Rooster. It's here on Twitch. Usually, I'm here during the week on Thursdays, Fridays. It just depends on the week. But recently, I've been so busy with some things that are coming out, Ragnarok, that have been taking my artistic focus elsewhere. But I should be back like next week, and I think I'm going to be painting quite a bit and building some armies. If you have more questions, you can find me there for sure. Or you can also come and check out Rag and Bone on Tuesdays right here and play some zombie survival horror with us. Seriously, if you're not hooked up into that scry right now, I highly recommend you get involved because it has made the game drastically different.
It really is. It's like thank you. It's like thank you for that tank. Thank you for clearing those zombies.
Yeah. Well, listen, I don't put anything out there that I'm not willing to have happen, but I was surprised by the support.
Oh, I wasn't because I'm like people are amazing and our community is like really cool. So it's just like yes.
Kia, you've done a wonderful job. I'm looking at your miniature now. Yeah, skin tone is great, and those pants have this shimmer to them that is perfect. And yeah, you've done it all, and none of the details are obscured. You can still see everything there, ready to go. You painted your first miniature.
Yes. This is why always do nail art, everyone. It's not a gender specific thing. Nail art is so gorgeous on people and it's so fun. And apparently it helps you do miniatures.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So all of y'all out there and remember like you spending this time with us at Hunter's Gathering, you have accrued time on Scry to be able to check out our campaign on Tuesday nights, which is at 6 p.m. PT. Outbreak Undead, Rag and Bone, which obviously Nox Weilerbirth is the GM for. I'm a player on there, so you can see us then. On Fridays for Hunter's Gathering, the next two shows that we have coming up is like the two-parter season finale that we're doing. The first part on December 11th is going to be it's just season remembrances with the entire cast. We are going over the entire season with the cast. We're going over characters, we're going over gameplay, we're going over themes. We're going to learn things about the characters that we didn't even realize that what was going on at the time. So we're going to just have a really good time together and doing all of that with the cast. And then on December 18th, we are doing, so you have that front of camera. So we're going to do the behind camera with production, like with the full season and everything that happens and everything, behind the scenes. And along with that, if there's any other information that we have to drop to you, like Altered Carbon and Ragnarok and such, we will also be doing that. And that's kind of like it's going to be like our company holiday party at the same time. So you might as well like stop by and enjoy that with us on December 18th. That one will be taped because of holiday like stuff that's going to be happening. But December 11th with the cast will be live. So I hope to see y'all then. Also, you can follow me on social media. And our amazing moderators have already dropped all their information in the chat. But I'm at Markia McCarty, basically anywhere. Discord and Twitch, I'm at Darth Markia. And thank you so much for our moderators. Thank you, our Alex, our community guy, like answering all of these wonderful questions. And obviously, thank you, Knox. Holy crap, my dude. I mean, thank you so much for doing this, like with my first miniatures and dropping all this knowledge with us with like GMing in Outbreak Undead World and what's going on with like Rag and Bone, and then also being our tech maester tonight with everything tech related, and very much appreciate you.
Yeah, we had a lot of support, and I really appreciate all the help that JB and Alex put into this as well. So thanks to those guys. Yeah, and thank you.
Yeah. All right, everyone. This has been a heck of a time. I'm loving this. And see you on Tuesday and then hopefully Friday, accrue those points and help us out. Help us out on Tuesday.
They're gonna need it. I'm serious. Don't miss the next two sessions. That's all I gotta say. If you're enjoying this at all, and don't watch it on VOD, come to the Twitch channel, because I promise you, the next two are going to be a thing.
All right, y'all. Make sure to like be safe, wear a mask, always blame Ivan Van Norman for everything. And we will see you Tuesday and Friday, 6 p.m. PT here at Hunters Entertainment.
All right, we'll see you guys later. Thank you so much.